Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Everybody, my name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for coming on in to the round table tonight to talk about the month that was with some pretty special and awesome people. Let me tell you, tonight's rundown: Katie Paige, Jason Guillemette from the UAP Studies podcast. Dirty Filth is here drawing cartoons. We got Grantavius Minimus from the After Hours show. Tom Whitmore, yeah, we call him Little Tommy W around here. And Nicole Sakach is back as well. Before we bring in this awesome, stellar panel, let us get into saying hello to everyone in the chat room. Race Fan, back in the gold medal position. Awesome Ann B with the silver. Jenny taking home her second bronze medal of the week. Lip Blade, how you doing, buddy? I hope your mustache is waxed just perfectly. Lisa Scene, good to see you. Mr. Cowley, welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his spaced out radio. Nightmare, Rhonda Montpetit, good to see you. Rhonda will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Dutch Hank, Francis Leon, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. Sweet Tony T, and there's Toe Tag. How you guys doing? Thank you for coming on in as we scroll on down. John Hinoyosa, nice to see you. Human Carl is here, everyone. Human Carl, not to be mixed up with Alien Carl. Carl's a great veteran of the United States military. Thank you so much for your service, Human Carl. We love you around here. Cat Chaser, nice to see you. And who else do we have here? We got Judy of Gaul, Alien Critter, Grantavius, TMI, Millennium, Donna Spencer. The Scowling, Greg O'Brien has returned. We love it when the Scowler is here. All right, let's continue on here with roll call. Jessica S., nice to see you early. George Hernandez, W. David Page, Robert Lamoth, thank you for coming on in. Space Exposure, welcome to SOR Chat. Glenn Dannison is here. Glenn will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, to the right of the studio. Invisible Tracker, and number 13 in your program, starting on defense from Pattaya, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Lars Jansson on defense. Jeff Perry, Chris Teen, good to have you back. Joshua S., nice to see you. Rui from Portugal, the Purple Hobbit Eric, nice to have you here. Hi, Mark Ellens, good to see you back. And Dale Ty, welcome to SOR Chat. Sweet Donnie Cho has returned. Ozzy, oi, oi to you. Silent Listen, nice to have you here. Hi, Dirty Filth in the chat room. Jim Nicholas, good to see you. And Molly, nice to have you back. And there's Thomas Fessler looking all studly and manly tonight in the chat room. He does not wear a necktie. Never wears a necktie. Eric Austin, welcome to SOR Chat. And let's see, who else do we have here? Scrolling on down, Susie B., nice to see you. And we'll get a few more here coming on up as we are about 1 minute away from launch time on Spaced Out Radio tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget, after the show, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down during the show, whatever you feel we deserve. It all helps out with the algorithms of YouTube, so we would greatly appreciate it. Hi, Love V Love, nice to have you back. And of course, don't forget, Book your holiday now at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, Nevada for May 19th through 21st. This entire panel here tonight will be in Las Vegas, Nevada for the second SOR fan party. And we're going to have live YouTube all day long on the Saturday, the 20th. Grant promises he will not wear his Superman costume this year. And it's good. It's good. And I got to drop about 65 pounds before I go because I just need to be looking as good as Tom Whitmore while I'm there and as skinny as Nicole Sakach. So that's how we're going to do things when we get to Vegas, May 19th through 21st at the Golden Nugget 2023. And in that note, we got about 5 seconds before we're going to launch here. Hi, Bill WD40, looking gorgeous on Spreaker. Horns up. Let's rock. Of Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of FSOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show and our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Now, we do a little bit of a different show if this is your first time tuning us on in when it comes to the round table. No, it's no real production here. We just have a group of great people, very brilliant people that are very familiar with the paranormal, using it as an umbrella term. And all of these people bring very, very special information to what we are going to talk about tonight. Let us bring in our panel for tonight's SOR Roundtable. We have Katie Paige from MUFON in Colorado, from the UAP Studies podcast, one of the best mustaches in ufology, Jason Guillemette, researcher Tom Whitmore, Nicole Sakach, researcher and author, and from the After Hours on Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel, we have Grant Baker as well. And here we go with everyone going on in, because it has been a busy week as we looked at the Wilson documents coming on out. We looked at the notes by a gentleman in Oak Shannon coming on in, Nicole Sakach. Let's start with you on this one tonight, because you have been front and center on the Oak Shannon documents. For people who may not have been caught up throughout the week, give us a quick synopsis on why the notes from Oak Shannon have been very important towards these UFO Wilson documents that were actually put into evidence during the congressional hearings this past summer. You got to turn your microphone on there, Nicole. And we don't have your microphone. While we're waiting for Nicole to figure that part out, let's go to you, Tom Whitmore, because I know you have been very close to this subject as well.
Well, it requires a little bit of explanation, but when the Wilson documents came into the public domain a couple of years ago, they were never supposed to be made public. And the reason why they were is because apparently Eric Davis wrote a memorandum of this conversation that he had with Admiral Wilson. And apparently he sent it to members in NIDS. And one of those members was the astronaut, Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell passed away, and a fan of his, a close friend, asked if he could have at least some, if not all, of Edgar Mitchell's personal files. And embedded in those files was the so-called Wilson Davis document. And in that document, it describes a conversation between Eric Davis and Admiral Thomas Wilson. And Wilson told Eric Davis, according to the transcript, that he had checked with Oak Shannon, who was a scientist at Los Alamos. He had checked with Oak Shannon, and that Eric Davis was okay, that Eric Davis had a good character and he could be relied on to maintain confidentiality.
So with that, these documents, Tom, got submitted into the congressional hearings this past summer, which nobody expected to happen. Yet it was kind of one of the shockers of a very bland day of, talking about swamp gas and little green men in front of the public for 90 minutes. But here we are looking at it today. These notes, they have their critics, they have their supporters, they have their cheerleaders. Why are these notes so controversial, Tom?
Well, they have the potential to be extremely important, because if valid and genuine, and if the information in it is essentially correct, then there is or was or must be some kind of deep, dark, secret UFO recovery and re-engineering program. And the reason why it's controversial is because I think some of the older and more cynical UFO investigators were really put off by the 1980s because there was a certain amount of disinformation going around. And so some UFO people looked at that document and they thought, well, here we go again. There's more disinformation. Here's another phony document. But this is a completely different situation, because we have a chain of custody. The document went from Admiral Wilson's estate to a close friend of his who wishes to become unnamed. And he's the only link in the custody that we don't have public. But that in turn went to James Rigney, and then James Rigney transferred it to Grant Cameron. And then Grant Cameron showed it around to other people, and eventually it ended up on Reddit and on the internet. So it went into the public domain. And that's one thing that the critics, the people that are cynical about the Wilson document, don't seem to get, that in the MJ-12 documents, they just appeared anonymously on a roll of film. No one knows who sent them, and no one really knows who created them or why. But in this instance, there is a chain of custody. We know where it comes from. We know how we got it. And that's an important thing. And some of the more skeptical people don't want to accept that. Another important aspect is that now Admiral Wilson has denied it. He has denied meeting with Eric Davis. But if Eric Davis came, all he had to do was Eric Davis come out and say, I never had this meeting. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen this before. It would have been a done deal. It would have been all over. But he hasn't done that. In fact, publicly, he came out, I think, with Al Putoff, and they said, we can't comment on this. I mean, that's a red flag that something is really going on here.
And that's a big point. As we bring in Jason Guillemette from UAP Studies podcast here, one of these things that I notice about the UFO field is you have your critics who are very staunch, Jason, on whatever the government side says. They are going with it. They're not really going deep. We've seen it with Lou Elizondo. We've seen it with the Wilson documents where, Admiral Wilson completely denies it, and all of a sudden that's it. There's no investigation of this whatsoever. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we are so quick as a critic in order to really downplay any type of information that is worthy of investigation?
I think it has to do with the investigator, or maybe just the public at large, whether or not that he'd taken any interest in the subject to begin with. I think a lot of people are afraid of the subject. My wife was included in that for a long time. I couldn't broach the subject with her. anything that could explain, what a sighting was, she would take it. It's not that way now, but I think we it's just innate. It's just something in our nature that we try to make sense of things that don't make sense, especially this phenomenon. I mean, this phenomenon doesn't make sense. The more I delve into it, the more I understand that there's so much more to this. And I think literally it just has to do with our attention span, whether or not we can actually put up with the fact that we might be visited by something.
Well, I mean, it's the big idea. This is what I don't understand, Jason, is we see these critics of the Wilson documents absolutely shredding it apart. Admiral Wilson didn't deny it. The government doesn't why did the government put fake documents into a congressional report without investigating them? We've seen the critics. Yet when it comes to somebody, if you flip the lid and you take a look at Luis Elizondo, those same critics are absolutely trying to tear the guy apart, that he didn't work at ATIP, that he's never been a UFO guy, that they're almost treating him like Bob Lazar being a janitor at Area 51, like Travis Taylor said. I mean, it's almost like the minute we get good juice, we don't want to drink from the cup.
No, I'm a huge Bob Lazar fan, by the way, and believer. Like I believe that he worked on the craft that he said he worked on. A lot of people say, well, I don't really believe that his story is legit. I say, okay, but he's proven two things. One, Area 51 and S4. He's proven that exists. He brought people out to that location many times to 7:30 o'clock on a Wednesday night to come visit and see this craft that would fly up in the sky. He also, with George Knapp as well, he described L1115 in 1989, which is crazy. We weren't even anywhere close. We just discovered that we're able to reproduce it for a microsecond. But it's, he predicted an element that wasn't even around, wasn't even anywhere near the periodic chart. So it's crazy. I think that Lazar is legit. And if he's legit, and he said that they had 9 crafts that he saw, that means that the government does have possession of these crafts, that they're trying to reverse engineer it. We know that because in 1989, they tried to do that. Probably because of Lazar, they had to move everything around and, where else they're not going to keep it there. But I think every time somebody comes out like that, we just harpoon them. Like it's just, we don't want to, we kill our heroes, if you will. People that are willing to come out and put their foot in the ground and say, hey guys, something's going on here. We shoot them down. It's the same thing with Lou Elizondo.
Katie Paige, let's bring you in here now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Your thoughts on these Oak Shannon documents, the Wilson documents, and the idea that, this has turned into quite a brouhaha within the UFO community as of late.
Well, it wouldn't be the UFO community if we didn't have a brouhaha and debate. We're always, have this healthy debate going on. And I tend to be one that's more on the skeptical side of things. And that really just stems from, the late 70s with the ranch and having such a heavy military presence out there, and then having Richard Doty, kind of come forward and, kind of say he knew about the place and there was nefarious things going on there. So I tend to look at things through a skeptical lens. That being said, Tom Whitmore's point that, we do know chain of custody on these documents, that makes a big difference, right? I'm always skeptical of people. And for whatever reason, I don't know what about Colorado MUFON it is, but, we have Mr. Bob Bigelow and other interesting players, that tend to come in through the Colorado door, which are sometimes more interesting than the UFOs themselves. So it keeps me kind of interested in what's going on. That being said, about a year ago, I did a presentation in Canyon City, Colorado, and I like to show up places early. And I happened to show up early, and next door was this editor of this magazine, and he was a high up there engineer at General Electric. And it's interesting because he basically said that, General Electric was privy to back engineered craft and that. So, maybe that there is truth to these documents.
All right, let's bring in Grant Baker from the after hours show on the weekend. I mean, you've been listening to this and looking into all of this past week. I know you've had conversations with many people regarding this subject. Now, Grant, we've talked about the critics. We've talked about the importance or non-importance of the Oak Shannon documents that are coming out. I mean, how do we put it all together? If you're not into the UFO field, if you're not somebody who understands what's going on, how do we bring the public into this to see what the importance of these notes are if they are truly real?
Well, the important thing is that when they are put in the hearings and they're entered into those type of places, I mean, they're taking it seriously. So if the government's taking it seriously, realistically, people should start noticing that. I don't care about the critics picking it apart and where'd it come from. You don't know this, you don't know that. When you have a group of people as lackadaisical as they are when it comes to this subject, and I mean, it's one of those deals where I wish they were just better prepared for it, but realistically, it is entered in there. That is a kind of a stepping stone for people to pay attention and be like, okay, what are these? Why did they do this? Read it for yourself. It's just, the proof is in the pudding. It's right in front of your eyes. Realistically, the way I look at it is they're not going to enter into any of these hearings if it wasn't at some point or some way, shape, or form at least real in some point of that text.
Well, and I agree with you, and I'm hoping that Nicole Sakach can get her technical difficulties with her microphone figured out, because she has literally been in the forefront of all of this news that is coming out regarding it. We may have to touch on it a little bit later in the show as well. Nicole, do we hear you?
Can you?
We can hear you now. Thank you. All right. So, Nicole, you get to wrap things up here on this subject, and we'll discuss it and debate it as well. We've heard a lot of opinions about the importance of these new notes and files that kind of corroborate the Wilson Davis documents that were made in 1989 in the back of a limousine in Las Vegas in the EG&G parking lot. I mean, this sounds very, very strange and very, very operational indeed with how these came out. But when we go through the entire aspect of this, Nicole, first of all, your hero and mentor and your research partner, Grant Cameron, has been holding on to a lot of information. We had Grant on last week in order to discuss these. But when we look at everything that you have been able to find out since then, going forward, what's going on here and why do we need to be paying attention?
Well, I will say, once we've had a few days to settle in from all the excitement of Oak's interview, to bringing out Oak's notes, to adding Melinda Leslie's research, and letting the storm kind of calm down a little, there are these little snidbits that we're starting to pull out of these notes. And one of them we're calling like the boom, boom, boom moment, or we're doing hashtag AP10, because this nice little connection was made between Melinda and the Hermetic Penetrator, and Grant and I and Melinda and Tom the other night while we were going through these notes back to back and together for the first time. And that was this little mention on Oak Shannon's notes on the bottom of one page. There's quotes, and in parentheses it says ATP and then 10 spelt out. Well, Tom and Melinda and the Hermetic Penetrator all immediately ran to like the Wilson documents, because down at the bottom of those documents, you see it says AP-10. So we're linking that as the same advanced physics 10. We are still kind of questioning what the 10 means, or if it means who, 10 of them, or, that's kind of out there that we're trying to figure out. And then one thing that Grant was also, we did, we pre-recorded something earlier before we joined Spaced Out Radio. And he and Melinda, I guess, have still been talking like we've all been chatting. And we were working on this part, or they were working on this part concerning, well, I'll just read Grant's quote because it's up on his Facebook. It says, Oak Shannon briefed Admiral Thomas Wilson on Eric Davis and the top secret advanced theoretical physics working group looking at UFOs headed up by John Alexander and held at the BDM Secure Facility in Virginia in 1985. This was kind of interesting to Melinda and Grant because this is the part of the Wilson Davis notes where Miller is talking with Mr. Oak Shannon. And he says, TW, Miller can give good advice on which defense companies to look at. That's all he knows. Changes subject. And then these are bullet points of Oak speaking with Admiral Wilson. Oak told all about JA, meaning Oak was informing Wilson all about John Alexander. And here in parentheses, it says, don't trust JA, a liar. AP 10 group meetings at BDM. So we can look at BDM. It's also mentioned in Bloom's book, Out There, which is where they kind of mention the UFO working group. So that's another book lead we can chase down. And then the next bullet point says, references Bloom book. And then Oak briefed me on the whole BDM thing. Talked about RV program for 10 minutes. I know something of this RV. So again, this is Oak talking to Admiral Wilson, and he briefed him on the whole BDM thing. Well, what is the BDM thing? We're now sort of suspecting that the BDM thing has kind of was going down with what Wilson was dealing with. He was trying to investigate. He was asking these questions. He was sending it up the pipeline, and he was getting doors slammed in his face. He was getting told no. This, I believe, is similarly to what has happened at BDM, where they were trying to get information and they couldn't. They were getting told no. So what Grant and Melinda, and maybe I a little bit, Tom, you threw in on this a little earlier slightly with us, but we're now thinking that Oak was telling Wilson about the whole BDM thing, comparing it to the trials and tribulations he was having with these probes that he was doing, investigating this. And then they talk about the RV program, and he knows something about the RV program. Well, Oak Shannon probably would know something about the remote viewing program. And then this is the part where we've been discussing. Oak kind of filled Admiral Wilson in that, yes, Eric Davis is a good guy. Talk to Eric Davis. So Oak said EWD was a team player, would keep mouth shut, no media connections, obey all restrictions, not in the government, no clearances, but pedigree excellent, professional and personal references very excellent. So this kind of now seems like Wilson was seeking out Eric Davis to maybe hear more about BDM. And we've kind of always approached this as Wilson was seeking, or I'm sorry, that Davis was seeking out Wilson. So we've just kind of flipped the script on the Wilson documents, and we're going to try to take it from this angle for a little while and see how far we get.
All right, we got a great panel for you tonight on Spaced Out Radio as we're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Researchers Nicole Sakach, Tom Whitmore, Katie Paige from UAP Studies. We have Jason Guillemette from the After Hours Show. We got Grant Baker, all fine and looking great as we get ready for the second half hour. When we return, was Bob Lazar a janitor on Spaced Out Radio? All right, we're clear. There we go.
You're lucky I saw that. I was reading intently. Sorry, guys.
No, you did great.
No, I've just been talking for 5 days straight.
No, it's good to hear it because I keep reading about it on Twitter and stuff like that, but to actually hear it all, sort of laid out like that, that's good to hear. Because I did not keep up with it this week. I took a break trying to take a break from Twitter and all the jazz is going on. But so, yeah, it's great to hear. Good recap.
Thanks. I know. I think the earliest clocked in time for going through all of it is 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
4.5 hours. And that's not watching everybody's interviews and videos that they've given. Just trying to go through the notes, all 3 sets of these notes kind of side by side, Wilson, Davis, Oak, and Jack. So
right. And Nicole, what does BDM, what does that stand for?
We have to look that up real quick because it's in the part of my notes that I don't have. It's a group meeting at BDM. It's a business.
It sounds like a Pornhub category or something,
No.
Yeah.
You're into BDM or something. So.
And when you talk about John Alexander, are you talking about our UFO John Alexander?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what does he say about these?
What he's been saying a lot of stuff, I think, behind the scenes to people that are asking him, but he hasn't come out with a public statement as far as I know. But in the past, well, Katie, he's written the book. He's written a couple books on it, but one of them is the things that shouldn't exist but do. And there's another book of interest. Like he has written about the advanced physics theoretical group. Said that wrong.
Yeah,
Others have
he
as
also,
well.
He also said at the SCU, when asked a direct question about it, that he pointed right to Eric Davis at the SCU conference and said you should talk to him about it.
Yeah.
Like trying to drag the answer out of Davis, and apparently Davis went very red after Alexander had pointed to him.
You guys, I honestly think Davis holds like the keys to the kingdom. He's who I get excited over when they talk about amnesty. It's like I want to hear what Eric Davis has to say. I really do. Maybe it's I don't know why him and obviously Hal Putoff. It's those two, and everybody else would be great, but those 2 names would solve a lot for us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else's thoughts? Yeah.
I agree.
Where I used to work, BDM business development manager.
Yeah. Tom, what does BDM stand for? The meeting at BDM.
Hold on a second. It stands for Braddock, Dunn, and McDonald, a longtime defense contractor of 7,000 employees purchased by TRW Inc. in the mid-1990s.
There you go. Braddock, Dunn, McDonald, BDM group.
You think people that work on these crafts, like in secrecy, get like dental, medical? Like, do they, is there like a union? Do they unionize? Yeah, right.
They get the best.
They get the best. Exactly. You keep your mouth shut and we'll get you the primo stuff. Yeah.
You'll have the whitest teeth.
Yeah. Even after you retire, you get to take it all with you.
Yeah.
From what I heard at my from my Area 51 source, that the minute you board that plane to take a job at Area 51, you were making 6 figures.
Nice.
And you get very well taken care of, very well fed. And if you're somebody who has to go there for weeks at a time, you are very well taken care of.
Okay. For anybody listening that's doing any hiring, I will keep my mouth shut.
Hey, I know they have to eat out there. There has to be like a cafeteria somewhere. I'm more than willing and able in any position in food craft services.
Right.
That is a good point.
They even have like, from what I heard, they have like a steakhouse there. They have bars and grills. Like there's a few restaurants there, and
pool table.
They're not going to take the Janet jet to go to McDonald's. Like,
Well, you also got to understand that jet goes there every single day. And so it's nothing for them just to load a bunch of stuff in the bottom of it. And when it gets there, they just unload all the food and everything.
like
Well,
the caterers.
All right, guys.
Catering on in.
Okay, we got 5 seconds. Thank you, Thomas Pascal ×2, Dirt Road, Big Dog, Vaughn, and Hank. Here we go with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Second half hour of the roundtable tonight, we are joined by an incredible, knowledgeable panel. Tom Whitmore from Researching MJ12, researcher and author Nicole Sakach from After Hours on our YouTube channel. Grant Baker from UAP Studies Podcast, Jason Guillemette, and researcher and MUFON member for Colorado, Katie Paige. Now, the next topic, we're going to have some fun with this one because once again, the debate about Bob Lazar got stirred up again this month. And this time it was by a gentleman named Travis Taylor, literally one of the smartest people in ufology. He's got like 97 degrees and masters and doctorates. I mean, the guy is brilliant. He is the top scientist on the television show for the Skinwalker Ranch and at Skinwalker Ranch. But a month ago, we were talking about him with his little secret about also working for Space Force. And that Brandon Fugel had just found out, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch. But now, Travis Taylor goes and speaks at an event called Phenomenicon. And he goes up on stage and he starts talking about Bob Lazar, the gentleman who in 1989, if you don't know, came out and said that he worked on alien spacecraft at Area 51 at a little base near Papoose Lake called S4. And this has been highly controversial and contested. Well, Taylor came out and said Bob Lazar did work at Area 51, but was a janitor. A janitor. All right. Katie Paige, we're going to start with you on this one.
Oh.
Where do you see
You would. Oh, gosh, I've been back and forth on Bob Lazar too. I tend to believe that I don't think there's any doubt he was out there and that he knows some things. Now, did he take that and elaborate it and just ride the train? I don't know. Element 115, didn't somebody say that that's just the natural progression of things? Like it wasn't a big stretch to come up with that. Is that correct? Have you heard that? Or I know Grant's shaking his head no, but I'm just saying, because I tried to look at both sides of the coin and I thought that was one of the arguments about that. Does anybody know? Tom, do you know anything about that?
Well, Lazar claimed that, or he said that the area or the element 115 has to be extracted from like neutron stars or something like that. And then scientifically, I think that element 115 exists, but only for a fraction of a second, like in a cyclotron or something like that. Mm. That's all.
Yeah, it's going to be pulled out of Moscovium.
Yeah, Moscovia.
Well, big words. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, it was discovered for real in the Soviet Union, correct? Or in Russia? They were the ones who made this little element, and they've called it Moscovia.
Yes.
It's 115 because it's the 115th one discovered. So
right.
Yeah.
And it's highly combustible. It doesn't last long.
Yeah.
Unless you've figured out a way to stabilize it, which is what Bob Lazar was saying. They haven't figured that out yet. And then he says that he escaped with some or has some. So if it doesn't last very long, how could you go out with it? Or is he meaning the residualness of having it?
Or he was a janitor taking out the trash. Maybe they
Yeah,
put
that
some-
is a question. I mean, it is kind of compelling. He did have his house like ransacked, and I mean, you
Well,
know,
don't him and Knapp like joke that it's behind him somewhere in the interview that they're giving, like in a thermos or you know, like, I don't know what it's.
I'm drinking it. Oh wait,
I will say
came to me in an envelope.
I have to correct this situation though. When you go back and listen to what Travis Taylor said in Phenomenon Necronomicon or whatever,
Phenomenon.com.
he does not say he was a janitor. He says he suspects he was something like a janitor. So people are making that sound like it's a dig though too, and that kind of irks me because, you know, I'm the one in our community that goes, I'm just a cook, you know, like I'm just a cook. So who cares if he was just a janitor? He was still out there, and janitors tend to have keys to everything. They have to clean up after everybody else that doesn't give a crap if they make a mess, so they have access to everything.
It's like in the Breakfast Club, they're the eyes and the ears of the institution. Like in the Breakfast Club, right, Nicole? They're the eyes and the ears of the institution. They know it all.
I've worked in schools with my position, and yeah, school cooks, lunch ladies, janitors, maintenance people.
That's right.
They know it all.
They know it all.
Yeah, if you're the CEO of the company, the janitor knows you're going to get fired before you do.
That's right.
See? So I hope Bob Lazar was a janitor. Like,
well, let's get back to it, because this is a debate that continues to persist to this day. And Grant, I know you have a lot you want to say on this topic regarding Bob Lazar. I mean, look, we can discuss a debate. Did he really work there? My source at Area 51 says Bob Lazar is the biggest joke on the base because nobody knows if he worked there. The long timers say we don't recall him. The short timers aren't sure whether or not to believe the legend. But we also have to remember that Lazar only was there for about 6 weeks. He's not going to get to know everybody. Even those people who have been there 35, 40 years are not going to remember somebody there for 6 weeks. It's like working any job, you know, whether it doesn't matter what you do. Somebody's there a short time. If they're a short timer, you're going to forget them pretty quick, Grant. You're on mute.
So it's always got to be me every single time. So real quick, let me just put this in perspective for everybody to make it really simple. The program was so compartmentalized that if you're walking down the hall and you're only there for 6 weeks, nobody's going to remember who you are. Your sources say he's a joke and he was a janitor. Where in the world have you ever seen a janitor that has degrees, is a scientist, a real scientist, who has put jet propulsion in a Honda? Like, the guy was brought there for a reason. He was a propulsion guy and he loved it. He's still a scientist. He lives 25 minutes away from me. And realistically, you don't put a scientist as a janitor. We'll just throw that in there. Not too long back, Richard Dolan has a list of people that worked there. So his big thing was, and it was asked of him, is Bob Lazar on that list? And yes, he is on that list. He has been found in other ways to be there in like a directory, stuff like that. So whether he was there or not, I'm a firm believer that he was. Obviously, he was there. He had very interesting information on element 115. Now, element 115, I think it was 2003 when it was finally discovered, the isotope. It was 288 over 115. They had discovered 13, 14. But before that 2003, you got to understand, Bob Lazar made these claims in the 80s. it is the natural procession. You go through the elements as you find them, and they keep getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And the isotope for element 115 is a pretty heavy element. When it becomes unstable as quickly as it does, now there's different ways, and I'm not going to get into the science of it, but element 115 can be broken down into a whole bunch of different isotopes, the way it works. And we just haven't figured out exactly how to do that yet. So the microsecond that it actually existed and we detected it is great. But for someone to be making claims of element 115 back in the 80s is kind of telling, to me at least. I mean, I can sit there and say, hey, I got visited by a gray last night, and they're telling me that 127 is the one that feels everything. And they get it out of some planet and some star system somewhere. And of course, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to have element 127, which could be nothing in a bus. And of course, who knows? But I believe that Bob Lazar was there. His story has never changed. He didn't want this. It was like it ruined his life, just kind of like other people that were in the field that didn't want it. I can talk about a few Travises that were, one named Walton, that it kind of took over his life. He didn't want this kind of publicity. Same thing with Lazar. The hand scanning equipment. He was showed a picture of one that was found at a base, and he says, "Where'd you get this?" And it was years later. And I think it was Jeremy Corbell that showed him that picture, and he just started laughing and stared at it. And you can see the emotion in this guy's face. It was a legit reaction that he had to see that picture. And he's like, that's it. That's exactly what I've been trying to explain to people. There was no writing on that paper. It was just a picture of the hand scanner, and he knew it, and he had drawn it before as well. These are all telling things. People want to pick this man apart. Go for it. He's been picked apart to death for the last 20 years. I believe 100%. You're going to pick on the person that either likes you the most, or who, you know what I mean? Or in this particular case, you're being picked on the public. And I think it's unwarranted.
All right, I'm going to go to Tom Whitmore here regarding this story. But, Tom, I want to look at it from a different angle. Travis Taylor saying he didn't have a position, he being Bob Lazar, didn't have a position much more than maybe janitorial duties. There's been others who've come out, whether it's Elizondo or Mellon, saying that Lazar's story is completely bogus. I mean, we've seen these ringers of the U.S. government coming out and really talking against Bob Lazar, yet George Knapp and KLAS has never retracted their report on it, and that's something that media outlets do indeed do if they get a story wrong. They've never had any, how can we put it, lawsuits filed against them. Lazar has never retracted his story on what he says. Looking at from the other perspective, why do you think many of these fellow scientists and people involved are still discussing Lazar to this day, trying to discredit whether or not he worked at Area 51? I mean, this is 33 years in the making now.
Well, like so much in the UFO field, and especially with the more controversial parts like crash recoveries and back engineering and alien bodies and all that, what we get is a lot of contradictory information. And I have to just keep an open mind, but take everything with a grain of salt in general, but particularly about Lazar, because the information is contradictory. On the one hand, he's claimed to have advanced degrees, MIT and Jet Propulsion Laboratory type stuff, and yet doesn't have any documentation to back it up. And now he has shown up in the phone book at Los Alamos, but the talk on the street is that he worked for a contractor. He was more of an electronics technician, like installing phone systems or satellite dishes or something like that. So, and he was, if he was at S4, he was there very briefly, like you said, Dave. So it's not surprising that people don't remember him. He hasn't changed his story basically over the years, and he doesn't seem to be a publicity hog at all. He only reluctantly comes out for interviews. He's not working the UFO speaking circuit like a lot of people do. But he is a controversial character. I think he was installing a security system for for a house of prostitution, which kind of aligns with people saying that he was more of an electronics technician type. So maybe if he was hired at Area 51 in S4, he was hired for the very reason that he had a kind of a checkered background, and he was something of an odd duck when it comes to science.
Well, that is something that we are always going to discuss and debate unless a list actually does come out. I mean, look, the education, here's where I get stuck. Okay. If you look at the education, Jason, regarding, Bob Lazar allegedly being at MIT and Caltech, and there's no records of him being registered at either of those schools. Okay. I can buy that in two ways. Number one, they erased his records, that Lazar says, and many say, or number two, he didn't go there. However, where I'm leaning towards the fact that his education was swiped is we saw the Pentagon and Susan Goff, who is the spokesperson for the Pentagon, start doing the exact same thing to Luis Elizondo and his emails.
Yeah.
And we saw that. And it was public that they were trying to erase who he was. So now I'm lost.
Here's the thing with Lazar. I've always been an advocate for him because he put things on the map that weren't on the map before, right? And again, like I said, how did he know that in the middle of the desert on a Wednesday night at 7:30, people would see a UFO flying? How would he know that? How did he know about S4? How did he know about the plane landing? People want to keep this stuff secret, and this is one of the biggest, if not the most serious topic, for this underground organizations that are in charge of these programs. They're obviously going to spend money to have people be good at their jobs and erase your past, especially when the past, back then was all paper trails. It's very easy to get rid of a few files and make somebody look like an idiot. Nowadays, it'd be harder to do because there's a digital trace. But back then, it's possible. You think about how many people have had visitations from people like, Men in Black telling people to shut up. Otherwise, they'll ruin their lives and stuff like that. Obviously, there's a program that, people are made to do this for a living. And they did that to Bob Lazar. They're doing that to Lou Elizondo, trying to discredit people, trying to make them look like fools. So then we all turn around and go, okay, well, story over. Let's look the other way. And I think that's, Lazar will eventually be, I wouldn't say vindicated, but at least we're all going to owe him an apology for saying, maybe you were right all along. Even if he was a janitor. If he was a janitor, that is one hell of a position to hold. I mean, I would still listen to him, if he was there for 6 weeks. Obviously, he saw the crafts fly. He's able to draw what the crafts look like on the inside and outside, how they operate. If he's just sitting there making this stuff up, he's either one of the best con men that's ever happened, or two, he's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Now, my source at Area 51 stated that a lot of people around the base knew when the testing was going to happen because they had to have it on certain nights in order to make sure that everybody was in preparation, from the firefighters all the way up to the commanders and the people conducting the test studies. They needed to know on certain nights when the testing was going on, just for safety and protocol of the base. So I can see where it would be very easy for Lazar to maybe not see anything, but say, hey, Wednesday nights they are doing these tests at 7:30 p.m. when it starts getting dark. And if he is not a scientist, everything is going to look like a UFO.
Right.
And yet, if you talk to people who've worked there, they will tell you that Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon and all of the big companies have these secret bases out. And when they are out testing, everybody else has to go into hiding on the base, because that's part of the rules, because you can't see what the other one is testing. And they go out and they do their tests of things that are way ahead of our time. And that's how we, as the people who are not in the know, believe it's a UFO. Katie, what's your thoughts?
I think that's still going on today. As a matter of fact, I don't know if people saw my Facebook post, but I captured some really unusual lights. I was taking my puppy out at 4:30 in the morning, and they were coming down. I really thought they were asteroids. Next day, I find out it's all over the Colorado Springs news, and then the next day, they're like, "Oh, mystery solved. Somebody photographed close up these top secret jets that were flying out of Air Force Academy." The two videos don't match whatsoever. It was almost like they're still trying to cover something up, right? So, and actually, if you go out to Area 51 today, which I've done with Doug Wilson a few times, we've had our adventures out there, and you go into the little alien, and there's still the nights. I think Wednesday night is one of the nights that people know those are the test nights. So, I see all sides of it. So, I tend to believe him as well. I mean, I do think he was out there, no doubt, but.
And just to say, in his defense, his wife was cheating on him while he was working at Area 51 or at S4. She was with a pilot that she was learning lessons from how to fly and stuff like that. Anyways, so they knew that this was going to happen. This is why they didn't bring him in. And, he was starting to panic and stuff like that. It was a panic. It was a reaction that made him come out. That reaction wouldn't be there if the pressure wasn't there to begin with, right? So
I need to add something. Jimmy Church had Richard Doty on in September 14, and it was Doty that claimed that he and his group, whoever they are, had a printout of everyone that worked at Area 51 between 1980 and 1990, and that Bob Lazar was on the list. Now they haven't produced that list yet. It'll be interesting to see if they do.
That is true.
I mean, I guess Richard Doty's coming out and trying to be a honest, upfront guy now, right? I mean, I just have a hard time believing Richard Doty.
Let me add one more part to the Bob Lazar thing, though, that I've always found interesting. Like, did he know he was going to get fired or let go or quit? Or in light of him maybe being a janitor-like position, was it maybe really like a temporary position where he was going out there and installing something like a camera system, a speaker system, whatever? So he would have seen all this stuff, known when the things are, and he's all like, yeah, I got to get all this stuff before I'm leaving. I'm done with my job. Or was this a position where he could have potentially stayed there to maintain something, and then when all of this character-driven stuff started happening, that's when they were like, out?
Well, he
did kind of seem like
he was interviewed by EG&G, and
yeah.
I think he may have been, if he was there, he was probably employed by EG&G.
Yeah,
who is a major contractor there at the time.
And he said that he would get random hours, like, they'll call him up at 3:00 in the morning saying, get ready, be at the airport in an hour. And he had to be there. And it was so sporadic and spontaneous that, they keep people off their guards. And he said even the person that gave him the medical exam when he first arrived there, he asked her a few questions about what she was administering to him. And she said, I don't know. I just see people like give them the shot and I don't know. Like nobody knew anything from anything. Even he was so compartmentalized that the partner that he had in there, they could only talk to each other. They weren't allowed to talk to anybody else. It's just, you work on this and that's it. Nothing else. You don't ask any questions. So yeah.
What would bring somebody out there so sporadically at different times? Like, I know when I worked for a school district and it was multiple buildings across like an entire campus, they would shut down one building or only work on it at night when students or faculty wasn't in it. So wouldn't that make sense to fly them out at night?
Could be. Our panel of Katie Paige, Jason Guillemette, Tom Whitmore, Nicole Sakach, and Grant Baker continues on Spaced Out Radio's Roundtable. When we return, does anybody really care about the paranormal anymore? Seems to have gone silent on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear.
So I got to real quick say I just made a mistake on exactly how close Bob Lazar is. I just looked up where he's at and what he's doing. He is literally 6 minutes from my
Is
home,
he
Really?
from
Is
where
he-
I live.
Wow.
is he listening to us?
You need
No,
to walk
I
to his front yard right now and broadcast live from
I
Bob
can-
Lazar's sidewalk in front of his house. No? Okay.
I can literally
Next
drive
show.
my car to his place of business in literally maybe 7-8 minutes. Like it's that close.
And
I
he
did
sells
not
scientific supplies now.
Under
Right.
So if anybody wants to know what it is, it's United Nuclear. So if anybody follows him on Instagram, he actually started posting a year and a half, 2 years ago about starting a business over in my neck of the woods, and he did it. And I looked it up, and sure as snot, it is here. And I'm like, holy moly, this guy's close. So guess who's going to try to take my business down to his business and be like, hey, you guys need a carpet cleaning?
Yeah. Right.
High
Are you-
five. High five.
Are you
I
in
like-
Oregon, Grant? Where are you?
Yes,
Where are you?
I am in Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Oregon. That's what I thought.
Fairly close to me.
You're just north of me, I think.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Yep.
Just outside Vancouver. Yeah.
And I got family in Camas, so I can be up there with you.
In Kamloops?
Camas.
Oh, Camas. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of people that come out here this way, so it's kind of cool. I live in a hot spot too. It's quite nice to live out here. There's always some sort of activity going on. So
Tom, when we take our graded Canadian adventure, we should ask Jason to join us when we egg and TP Dave's house.
That'd be great.
Well, we got to stop by Grant's house first and paper his house.
You got it.
When is this Canadian adventure taking place?
You want in on it? We might
maybe.
just have to rent a big party van to drive through Canada.
Yeah, I'm in.
No, we're gonna get a school bus and paint it psychedelic.
nice, nice.
Hippie bus to Canada.
You get out of the
Hey.
bus, you talk to people. You believe in UFOs, man?
Yeah.
Hey,
Dude,
And then the rumors will really start.
Yeah.
I wear shirts like this when I'm working, right? And
Nice.
I got a whole bunch of them. And Dave even asked me one day, how many freaking paranormal shirts do you have? A lot. And that's actually what I use to get people started talking about their experiences. And then I started talking about SOR, my experiences, and blah, 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 blah. And it really gets the ball rolling. For anybody that's listening right now or watching the chats, I'm going to go ahead and post up United Nuclear so you guys can see exactly where Bob Lazar works.
Nice.
Grant, do you find that most
be right
people you
back.
talk to have experiences? That's what I have found.
Mhm. You know, what's really interesting is the older population that I work with here have come around. One gal who's probably in her 70s just literally started talking to me about it. Like, I've seen grays and that. I'm like, this lady's old enough to be my grandma, and she's talking about this is awesome. And then I told her about Spaced Out Radio, and she watches all the archives. She doesn't have time to watch it. She's usually asleep at 7, so the next day she watches it. But
hey, Grant.
Yeah.
If
She's
I-
at bingo.
Grant Baker, if I send you these 2 links to the 2 points that I discussed at Grant's, can you add them to Spaced Out Radio or drop them in
absolutely, send them to me.
so they could see what we were kind of breaking and discussing today? I'm
Absolutely.
sending it to your messenger. Thank you.
Not a problem.
If you want to just pull the picture from it, that would be good too, like the clip.
Yeah, I can do that. Holy moly.
It'll give reference. I like that. So appreciated.
You are more than welcome.
You should have seen me and Tom watching me trying to figure out my share screen yesterday and today. It was kind of awful, wasn't it, Tom? I'm not very good at the whole share this, pull up that, transfer to,
You're not any worse than a lot of people I've seen on YouTube trying to do it.
And see, I think they're better at closing the windows and shrinking them. And I need to sit around and do it more, I guess. I'm just worried about the talking and not the production side of it.
So for everybody in the chat, Spaced Out Radio just posted those links up for you that Nicole Sakach was talking about. I'd go ahead and either copy and paste them into your browser, and you can go right to them.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Hi,
welcome.
YouTube chat room. Giggles, Julie. I know you're in there.
I'm not one to criticize Nicole because I have enough trouble trying to email a Google Doc.
Well, I think a lot of my problem is I don't sync a lot of my technology, and when I'm here at my laptop, I don't want like all the messengers going off, or even I don't even have Facebook on my laptop because I don't want to be tempted to open it up and get sidetracked. So I do have to kind of transfer things and share when I know I should sync. So it makes it difficult if I'm not organized.
All right, guys, we got about 20 seconds. I want to say a big thank you to Thomas, Pascal ×2, Dirt Road, Big Dog, Jeffrey, Dutch Hank, and Vaughn for the super chats. Oh, hey, Clam, how you doing? And remember, we got some good stuff coming up on Spaced Out Radio with the weekend crew. Jessica Jones right before After Hours, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern. Here we go, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello, everyone who is listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Glam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lacuscular. Lacuscular is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a pro features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our SOR Roundtable that we do at the end of each month has kicked on in. We are joined by UAP Studies podcast host Jason Guillemette from the After Hours show on Spaced Out Radio on our YouTube channel, Grant Baker, Katie Paige from MUFON in Colorado, Tom Whitmore, researcher of MJ12, and researcher and author Nicole Sakach. We're going to get into a little bit of fun here. I know most of us are UFO people, and this show is mainly about UFOs and a lot of cryptid talk, but I love the paranormal. I do. I mean, I have my issues with it, but it just seems like over the last year or two, is anybody really talking paranormal stuff anymore? Does anybody really care about ghost television, even though the ratings, especially for Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans and his crew, are still very high? I mean, you go back when I started this show in 2014, and holy cow, was that a long time ago. Can't believe we're coming up on 8 years already. Everything was paranormal. Everything was about ghosts. Nobody cared about UFOs. And now, if I look at our own ratings on a nightly basis, if I do a UFO show, we're in the thousands of listeners. If I do a show on paranormal, it's literally cut in half, our audience. What is going on with the paranormal these days, Grant?
I'll tell you right now, I was a big fan of watching paranormal quite a few years back. It was either, paranormal this, paranormal that, especially with Zach. There was also one where you see these people with the camera facing them, and it's all night vision. They had these tasks to do in these weird places. It was fun. It was a lot of fun to watch these people get creeped out and just spooked and show exactly how yellow you turn when you go into a dark place that you're unaware of what's happening. And I think some of it was set up, but in fact, probably most of it was. The thing is even back then, people still were doing UFO research, but it just wasn't being televised over the media. Then once 2017 gets involved, when things kind of blew out of the water, so to speak, that's when it started ramping up. And then, of course, the paranormal's been around for decades. Gosh, probably even more than that. There's ancient books written about this stuff. It's been around too long, but the thing that's the hot topic is what people follow. And right now, the hot topic, including the government, are on UAPs, UFOs, and aliens. So I think it's just a trend. And right now, we're on the same wagon as the UFO.
Well, have we forgotten about ghosts? Because UFOs are the easiest one to right now prove. Katie?
I got a ghost over my shoulder right there. And in that corner, I actually started in the paranormal world and did some ghost hunts with the ghost hunters. And I still am very much interested in the paranormal and ghosts. And I agree with Grant. I think, 2017, the trend, maybe everybody's just a little burnt out on ghost hunters. They've been on the air forever, and there's kind of oversaturated the networks with the ghost shows. There's only so many ghosts. But I'll tell you what, I'm 150,000% convinced that ghosts exist. I've had so many experiences with them, and I'm like 90% there on the UFOs. So I'm kind of still hungry. I think the UFO topic has more mystery and questions and intrigue and researchability, and you can only research so much with ghosts.
I agree.
Well, the interesting part about it is, we all love to be spooked, Jason. We all love to be scared. And, like I'm going into the forest again tomorrow night, because I need to go back to my Sasquatch gifting site where the week previous, there was something there. We didn't see it, but there was something there that three of us felt was going to scare the daylights out of us.
Right.
And we didn't leave within 20 feet of my vehicle. And for the 40 minutes we were there, I kept my vehicle running, and the doors open because we just had that feeling, but I got to go back. I need to go back. It's this rush to make things, like that. But when it comes to ghosts, do you think it maybe has something to do with the fact that for a long time there, the market was so oversaturated with ghost hunting teams and claiming they're conducting scientific experiments when you knew that the team, nobody had done a scientific experiment since high school. I mean, Team Skeptic on the website having to pose on an angle with his arms crossed, looking very stern and serious. I mean, that's one of my favorites. I mean, what do you think it is? What has caused, outside of the UFO being the hot topic, what do you think has caused the demise in the popularity of paranormal?
I'm going to be honest. I think it's technology. Even YouTube. You think about how many people have paranormal podcasts or shows that they do on a regular basis. My daughter watches a lot of YouTube and watches a lot of these ghost hunter things, and I find it funny because I don't find it really scientific. People would be like, "Oh my God, you guys! I just felt like a breeze go by my face. Pretty sure it was a ghost." I was like, "No, that's not the way it works." But I think that, we're so inundated now with, even I go on Facebook, it's all UAP stuff, all UFO stuff. I'm so fed up of it. It's like, sometimes I don't even look at my Facebook. It's like, I can't take it anymore. Like, it's just, I'm too much. I signed up to too much. But because of that, I think we start losing an interest in it. And ghosts are hard to prove, almost the same as UAPs, but UAPs, at least you have some, some footage. And now we're starting to get some, infrared stuff, and it's kind of cool. With ghosts, we still don't know what the secret recipe is, and I think people are sort of like, this is we've grown up with ghost stories and stuff like that. Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby, that really opened up my mind. Yeah, remember that movie? Yeah, that's when Bill Cosby was still good. But yeah, it's crazy. I think that it is technology that's killing the paranormal. Even I don't understand this. Every time there's a Bigfoot or a UAP, somebody starts shaking the camera Like, and trying to zoom in, and then they just zoom in on a bird, and it's like, what? I don't understand why people go nuts and go, look, I have irrefutable proof. It's like, no. And the internet's full of that stuff. So I think, the interest is starting to wane a bit.
One of the things that upsets me about paranormal television that really turned me off is you'd all of a sudden hear that one of the investigators said, "Did you hear that?" Well, no, I couldn't hear it because your sound guy turned up his bloody music louder than the sound that was coming through. How am I supposed to hear that? Or did you see that? Well, what did I see?
Dust orbs flying by the camera. Yeah.
But I mean, the idea behind it is when you do the same show, I mean, it's like that old saying about insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I see that with every paranormal television show. They don't want to admit when they do catch something because they got to be so skeptical, right? When they don't catch anything, they tell the person, no, it's not haunted. Well, geez, you spent a total of 12 hours of filming for a television show. I don't think you can call ghosts on command to come on in. I mean, it just, I just think that people caught on to the BS of ghost hunting. I'm not saying the phenomena isn't real. I've had numerous experiences. My house is haunted. Okay. This studio is haunted, right? Tom, let's get your opinion.
Dave, I have a plan on how to get ghosts back on the front burner. Okay.
Nice.
Military people are seeing ghosts during military exercises. You have a Lou Elizondo type whistleblower who comes out and says that the government is not paying enough attention to ghosts and that he's been told that they're demonic. Then you have Congress passing laws demanding to know what DOD knows about ghosts. Then they'll be back on the front burner.
Wait, they have to be a threat.
That's true. That's true.
You can work that into the language somewhere.
That's when you cross into poltergeist and demons. And see, this is crossing over into UFOs. But I don't want to cut off Grant Baker because honestly, Tom's usually the one that brings a lot of common sense to any situation. And I might be the common sense one. So I want to go last. Grant, it's your turn.
Well, with my experience with ghosts, I've actually had plenty of experiences with them, and especially when I was younger, all the way up until, my 20s and stuff. Now the things that I see are like shadow people and the shimmering beings that I've talked about before. But when it came to ghosts, I've never found them demonic. The ones that I've come across were more playful. Now, when you're a young child, they don't seem very playful. But then once I started getting used to them being around, listening to the stories, I think they follow family members, stuff like that. It might just be a genetic thing. Who knows? The one thing when it comes to ghosts, whether they come back into the limelight or not, I agree with Tom. You got to make it some sort of front page news. If it hits the New York Times, then people are going to start paying attention to that again. It's like dangling a carrot out with a stick. You're going to lead the populace wherever the media goes and whatever the hot topic is. Do I believe in ghosts? Yeah, I really do. I don't think you can call them. I've been kind of creeped out by the ghost box, the little box that does all those chatter and you can ask it questions stuff. I don't really dig those. They kind of creep me out. But really, honestly, I'm going to say they got kind of boring over time. It's just people are bored with it.
Is it boring, or the fact, Grant, that paranormal television or paranormal groups, they're not solving anything? And I think a big problem that we have in the paranormal is we have a bunch of weekend warriors who go out there and literally they just want the thrill. They want to be tapped on the shoulder. They want to see or grab a picture of a shadow being. They want that EVP, because my famous saying is this: how do you confuse a ghost hunter? Ask them what they do with their evidence.
Yep.
They do nothing.
They do nothing with it. They've never gotten actually a solid case of evidence. I don't think you can go ghost hunting. It's not like hunting elk or anything like that. Realistically, if you want to have some fun, you put it on primetime TV like they've been doing, especially back in the day. The higher the numbers, the more shows they're going to put out. At that point, it's all about money. And then you get like Zach and his team out there. And of course, Zach's a muscle bound dude, with the hair, and then, he looks good on TV. He's very articulate and excitable, and you get excited watching these guys. And that's all it was really about when it comes to those shows.
So how do we track the ghosts then? Like, what is the purpose of it? For me, I want to see people starting to try and figure out some of these major questions that we have. Is it life after death? Is it different timelines that we are intersecting with? Jason, what's your thoughts? I mean, what would improve ghost hunting to bring it more back into the popular landscape? Much like what Tom said, that we have to, get the government involved in this.
To actually capture one, you need to actually get irrefutable proof that they exist. Do I believe there's life after death, or that people can get out of their bodies and see stuff? Yeah, we hear that all the time. Leslie Kean covered it quite nicely in her documentary. And I think, it's possible that we could live after, death, and that there could be ghosts. But they're not very good at interacting with us, and they're not very good at showing themselves on film. Again, like you mentioned, like they'll have a little recorder, like, do you hear that? Do you hear that? It's like, it just sounds like the fridge kicking in. And they're like, I think it says help me. And again, it's just, that's what these documentaries do. They have no proof. They just like, oh, this was an amazing time. We finally proven that something lives here. It's like, no, you haven't. No more than the ufologists have proven that UFOs are real.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I wish we could prove they were real. The day's coming.
Well, what if they're all one of the...
Go ahead, Grant.
I said, what if they're all one and the same with the ETs and the consciousness? People see the shadow people.
Yeah. I'll jump in a little bit with this. They are looking at it. They have started looking at it from these angles. I'll just point out the recent most obvious is Bigelow's new, what was it? Write me this thing and I'll give you a bunch of money to research it. It was all about near-death studies. So they're looking into that angle. We know they poke into UFOs because they want to figure out the propulsion. So they want to figure out how these things pop in and pop out. We know we talk about aliens being able to appear, ET appearing. Well, certain people do track these things down because in the paranormal world or spiritualism world, you have physical mediums. Leslie Kean, right after she launched all her 2017 articles, what was the next article she wrote? It was about physical mediumship, going to visit this sitting circle where these hands manifested and she could feel the hand. It was physical. You could feel bones inside of it. There are sitting circles out there where physical manifestations come through. So they are looking at angles like this. People are studying these things. And then to wrap it up, I just want to give maybe this brief overall history of the spiritualism movement that we've seen in North America and probably at various times throughout history. And it was a really big deal during the Civil War when families were separated and loved ones couldn't be with other loved ones during their death. It was the first time, like, what is a good death? It really became known, like, a good death is when you're at home, at peace with your family, not in some battlefield halfway across wherever and dying alone. It was very affecting to the population. And you did get this upkick of wondering where your loved one was or if you could communicate with them. And you did see this rise of spiritualism. And that's where people like Madame, I always say her name wrong, Madame Blavatsky. Yeah. And so that pushes us into the turn of the century, into the 1900s. And we did kind of have a full-blown spiritualist movement, you know, tipping tables, sitting circles, seances.
The
And that
occult.
did kind of continue into our modern age, where it is hokey with ghost hunter shows. But I think they're all hokey like that because they don't spend time in these true dedicated sitting circles or mediumship circles, which take decades sometimes or years of the same people coming together and working with these people that can manifest all these amazing things. Like, I know right now in the world, there's only a limited number of what they call physical mediums that can produce the ectoplasm from their eyes or their everywhere almost, which is what is considered. Leslie Keene wrote about the hands coming up. That was sort of an ectoplasm thing. But you hear about other circles where instruments get played, and it's just all very strange, but it's also very relatable to UFO contact experiences. Like, what's going on with this? Beings manifest, noises, sounds. It's a very interesting angle. Go back and read Leslie Keane's article, everybody.
Well, you know what? We have 2 minutes to go before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. The roundtable continues tonight. I want to get into the idea, though, that the paranormal is a fun aspect. Anybody can do it. Anybody can go out to a haunted location and potentially get evidence, but I think the fact is, I think too many people realized, and too quickly, that the paranormal was something that could get them on television. And I think maybe that was one of the big downfalls, Tom, that we saw with paranormal TV, regarding the fact that everybody said they were getting a shot on television. They were getting their 6 episodes done, created, and they were going to be picked up, and they were the next ones. They were the ones that were going to go. I think that's where part of this really, really took flight and really, really was the beginning of the end of its popularity.
I have a saying that the UFO people, and this is a little bit off the paranormal topic, but UFO people like to think that we're being monitored by the CIA or the Defense Department or the DIA or the NSA. But I'll tell you who monitors us, and that's Hollywood. They watch every single thing that we do, and they pick up on it, and that's how they develop these programs like ghost hunters and all that, and UFO programs. And I think y'all have already made the point. I mean, how many ghost hunters series are going to watch until it's kind of run its course?
That's a good point, though, Tom, because if you go on television, it is all ghost television. How much UFO television is there? There really isn't a lot, considering what's going on. We have
there's a lot.
I beg to differ on that. There's more.
Me too.
Okay, there's a lot of documentaries being made.
Nope. I can't turn on a single kid show streaming in thing without 4 or 5 UFO shows on every single one.
Really? Because
Yeah.
Up here,
at Netflix, look at Amazon Prime, look at Hulu.
Okay, I'm saying regular television, not
who has that? Who has that anymore? Regular television.
Believe it or not, when we come back from the break, one of our audience members, Sweet Donnie Joe, says, how come no one talks about the Loch Ness Monster anymore? I think this is a good topic. There's more than just Loch Ness Monster that we are not talking about. We're going to get into those mystic monsters when we return on Spaced Out Radio with Katie Paige, Tom Whitmore, Nicole Sakach, Jason Guillemette, and Grant Baker on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned.
I love Nessie.
Dirty
Totally
Phil,
faked.
You have a Nessie, don't you?
So real quick, I'm glad you said that because I have a very good friend of mine who is, he's a doctor, and I talk to him on a weekly basis, and he was just over there 2 weeks ago. And what he told me was very interesting. We pretty much already know it, but yeah, I love
Loch
the
Ness?
Nessie stuff.
That's where he was?
Yeah, he was there 2 weeks ago.
That's the lock?
Yeah, he even got the T-shirt and everything.
Did he buy the little model that they floated out? They were like, it could have been a model. And it's just like the head on the little trolley looking thing. The head and neck. Do they have those for sale?
Probably wouldn't be hard to make one.
I want one. Now, honestly, I used to be fascinated with the Loch Ness Monster when I was little. It seemed to be like the big one, and then it went away for a while. It was the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot thing, Loch Ness Monster, and then for me, Rendlesham Forest and Roswell. It was like those two. That seemed like on every paranormal show, that's what you were going to get.
Yep. Real quick, National Geographic just did something about Loch Ness as well, like just recently, like real recent. Like,
so here we think we're disclosing UFOs, and it's really going to be Loch Ness Monster. Is that what's going to happen, Nessie?
I thought the Loch Ness Monster was put to bed. I thought that was done.
Yeah.
it is. It's put to bed, but it was. You got to admit, it was a good story, good folklore.
You know,
have you guys seen?
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
I was going to say, have you seen this article? NASA scientists detect evidence of parallel universe where time runs backwards on a quantum level. I mean, it's over a month old, but has anybody else seen this? I was thinking with the paranormal shows, that's where they really need to go. They need to tie it into like quantum physics and really get down to how this is working. Physics. Just like the nuts and bolts of ufology. What is the propulsion system? How are ghosts coming in and out? Like, let's figure that out and stop doing EVPs.
I got something for you. I had a television producer call me up because I helped work on this television documentary that'll be coming up here on the Gold Rush Trail, which runs right by my house. And we were talking television, and they're like, what are we missing? What are we missing on this? I said, you want to know what you're missing? And I said, I have the show for you. I want to do this show. So a couple weeks ago, I actually got to sit down and have an hour-long conversation about the program that I think is needed. And I've said it on this show before. I said, what is needed is we need somebody to go to all of these, hop in a motorhome with a team and travel to all of these small little towns that have their own legends and folklore and investigate them. Because if we don't, those stories are going to be forgotten eventually.
Right. Like Small Town Monsters. Small Town Monsters does that.
Absolutely. And I said, up here in Canada, because it's a Canadian program, I said, nobody is doing this. Well, how do you plan on doing the show? I said, well, at first you break down the history. Then you go into talking to the people of the town. Then you go do your investigation. And then you say your results, whether they are real or fake. Yeah, I don't know if that'll work. I said, how the fuck can it fail?
Whoa.
No, I'm allowed to swear during my commercial breaks.
Only about The Rock's little tidy black man panties that he wears when he wrestles. That's the only time he can drop F-bombs.
Right? So anyways, I said, how can I said, are you serious? I said, you know why you're not getting any quality programming? Because you're copycatting all the ghost shows out of the United States. Did you hear that? Did you see that? I said, no. I said, in fact, the show that you had me work on, I'll tell you right now, those girls were bloody terrible. They didn't even know what they were doing. They had I don't know the name of it, a Melmeter or something like that, had this antenna going up, okay? And there was moths and bugs all around it, making it buzz. Oh, the ghost. Wasn't the ghost. For the moths. Look for the moths, right?
I think what's missing both in paranormal shows and UFO shows is sort of like in a kind of like a detective show where the viewer feels like they're part of the process of trying to solve the mystery, and I did a interesting experiment. Okay.
Hold on. We got 5 seconds. Here we go, everyone. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the roundtable tonight as we are joined by MUFON Colorado's Katie Paige. We have Jason Guillemette from the UAP Studies podcast. Grant Baker from After Hours on YouTube channel for SOR here. Nicole Sakach, author and researcher, and Tom Whitmore, researcher of MJ12. And one of our chatters here tonight, we call him Sweet Donnie Cho. He brought up a good question. How come nobody ever talks about monsters like the Loch Ness Monster anymore? Why have we forgotten about all of these strange and weird creatures? Because all we ever hear about, UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, Dogman, that's it. That's our big four. Okay, those are the money makers right there on any show. But I mean, the Loch Ness Monster or gnomes running around the forest or puckwudgies of the Blackwater Triangle or Bridgewater Triangle, pardon me, in Massachusetts and Maine, or anything. The little green men that run around the forest, little people of First Nations lore. There are a ton of legends out there, Tom, that just really are not getting the respect that they deserve. I mean, wouldn't you want a good mermaid or banshee story?
Makes for a great campfire story. But the thing is, we have the missing proof syndrome. Nobody ever came up with an actual Loch Ness monster. Nobody has an actual Bigfoot. We don't have an actual UFO. We suspect the government might have one. And no one has a ghost in a cage to show everybody. So after a while, I don't know, I think you get missing proof syndrome fatigue. You get interested in something and you go year after year after year and you never get an answer, really, truly. I mean, it's an interesting subject, but after a while, you just get tired of it.
It's like Oak Island. I'm still waiting for them to find the treasure.
You know what the funny part about it is? Us Canadians actually laugh at Oak Island because even the locals there know there is no treasure. And they're just reaping in the money.
I'm a believer.
The Templars took it.
I will tell you, there is a brand new show out up here in Canada. I forget what it's called, but it's about Slumax Gold. It literally is like in episode 2 or 3. So somewhere in the Cascade Mountains on the Vancouver side, okay, by a city called Maple Ridge, in the mountains there, an old dude with the last name of Slumac actually buried a bunch of gold up there worth apparently tens of millions of dollars. So they're actually creating this, and this gold, they know it's up there. They just don't know where. And in fact, what's really funny is I had a gentleman on this show about a year and a half ago, named Brian Atkinson, who wrote a book on Slumax Gold. And Brian Atkinson was my dean of broadcasting when I went to college for radio, which was really cool to actually get him on and actually interview him for once rather than him grading me. right?
Wow.
But the idea behind it is, there are all these little legends out there that we're not taking advantage of, that people would just have, if we could see through the blinders and just look on the other side. You don't need to look on the other side too far, but just look there. There's all sorts of monsters and legends out there that we could be chasing it down and tripping on. Grant, your thoughts?
Well, when it comes to cryptozoology, I'm a big fan. I love it. And it's one of those things where you have all these cryptids out there. I have a shirt with like 50 of them on it. It's great. I Bigfoot's one of my, I'm biggest fan of Bigfoot. I still haven't found him the second time yet. I did catch him once. So he's not the best hide and seek champion. I caught him once. But realistically, when it comes to something like Nessie, let's just put this one to bed. So Nessie, back in 565 AD, a dude named, I can't even remember his name, Saint Columbus or something like that. He's actually the one that said it. The Nessie bit a swimmer and was about to attack another man. And that way back in 565, he said, go back in the water, did something like that and forced back in the water. Back in 34, 33, early 30s, there was another gentleman, and I think it was Kenneth Wilson. I think that's his name. Anyways, he said he's got one of the most historical photos. Now, bear in mind that photo later came to light now, recently, in the last 20 years, that it was a hoax. But then back in, late 80s, early 90s, they started doing the sonograms, or not the sonograms. What are those things where sonar?
Sonar.
Yeah, they did sonar. Now, if anybody has ever seen the Loch Ness, not the monster, but just the actual loch itself, it's literally a crack in the earth, and it's very narrow. It's deep, but it's very narrow, and all you need is like 10 boats, send people out there with 50 grand worth of equipment, and you can literally just right across that thing. You're going to find it. So it kind of faded in. It's a great lore. I love the story. It actually, something that happened from 565 AD till now. That's a long lasting story. If by chance there was something there way back when, it's probably perished by now, but who knows? What's up, Nicole?
I want to chime in on you. That's why I'm like, be next. Were you done? I wasn't meaning to interrupt. I was just like, yeah. Because I don't know, some of our chat room that follows along with us might realize that every time we start this kind of cryptid creature talk, I bring up one thing all the time, and it's unicorns. Unicorns. And I follow this up with, it's not just every little girl loves unicorns. One of our most beloved old timers in ufology has recently lectured about this. And Jacques Vallée has, it's in the Archives of the Impossible Conference, first plenary session, March 3rd, 2002, Jacques Vallée. And during this conference, he speaks about evidence. And Grant, what's the date you just said? 550 AD or
565.
Right. Well, within this time period, they are finding archaeological evidence of, like when we first started to domesticate cattle and things like this, and the types of animals that we would use to help protect herds. Well, one of these, and we still see them around today. I saw them at carnivals when I was little. They're these goats that have the one horn instead of two. And they were actually made to defend their herds because they were kind of dangerous with one horn. They could protect flocks from wolves. And you can only do it with the male goats, but when they're first born, you can take their two little horn nodules and you can physically move them together. So when it grows, it'll grow as one horn instead of two.
Sweet.
So I think Valet is pointing this out in the sense of there was a form of genetic manipulation happening, or at least this messing around with animals on this level. It is kind of known. So in that sense, I'm taking it further than he mentions in this at all. Look it up on the Archives of the Impossible, Rice University. If you're not looking at UFO stuff there, you're bad. Go look. Wonderful. But I will extend that and say, if even pockets of people were making little unicorn horns, what other things with other animals could they have possibly been tinkering around with? I mean, somebody had to figure out what food was poisonous. Somebody had to figure out what animals were nice to people enough to like get them to hang out. Like, people are curious.
Who'd like that job though?
I-
hey, eat this. Okay, I may die.
No, I think it was more like, oh crap, they just ate that. What was it? What did they eat? Like, don't even stay away from that bush. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So this could have been one herdsman somewhere or a family of them. And they're like, hey, look what we figured out. You know, we don't have to sit out with our herd all day if we've got a one-horned man goat running around to protect the rest of them. So, you know, anything that makes your life easier, I think you're going to try to figure out. So, you know, if you don't want to watch your own herd all day and be a shepherd, then you're going to get a guard animal.
Well, everything's possible. There was that lady in China that grew a horn.
Whoa. I
That
didn't hear
comes in
about
handy.
her.
There's people out there that have grown tails. I mean, it's the same thing. But I mean, you look at all of the different monsters that and legends that are out there. I mean, from pterodactyls to raptors running around to mini T-Rexes, to all of the crispy critters that are not being seen. Why do you think, Tom, we are focusing just on Bigfoot and Dogman rather than some of these other legends that are just as difficult to try and find information on?
Well, you're right, Dave, and everybody's right here in that there are a number of cryptid subjects, you know, sea monsters and sea life dredged up out of the ocean and all kinds of things, and all of these legends about dwarves and gnomes and all of this, and it goes on and on and on. So I think you're right that the subject in general, if you're going to put it on TV and have a series, you know, a documentary and documentaries, then bring in some other topics. I think the general subject of very mysterious life that has been dredged out of the oceans. I mean, sometimes we have to remember that the ocean can be thousands and thousands of feet deep, you know, like the Mariana Trench. I don't know if we really know what's going on down there.
Alien
Well,
bases.
Yeah, alien bases. You know, for you, Jason, what do you think we're missing out on by not even looking really into these other cast of characters in the cryptid world?
I think we're missing out. You know what it is too, is the lore and legends that pass down from generation to generation. I know when I was a kid here in the Okanagan, which is in BC, we have a big lake, and we have the Okopogo. Okopogo? Am I saying that right?
Ogopogo.
Just Okopogo. I haven't said that in so long. My French accent's kicking in now. And I love that. Like, I used to love going to the beach and like saying, oh, maybe we're going to see it, like that excitement that we had. And again, I think that just, you know, modern times have killed that. People's attention spans are very short. If it's not on TikTok, it's not legit. And you know, they're not excited. The kids today, they're not excited about this sort of stuff like we were when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
I think that technology has really changed things for us.
You haven't lived until you went snipe hunting.
Yeah.
Boy Scout.
Kind of true.
What is snipe hunting?
You just gotta go. We're not telling you.
We can't tell you. We'll take you. We'll take you snipe hunting.
Canadian, yeah,
I
our
am
Canadian
just
tour.
I'm so excited because I just found out that the SOR fan party is over my birthday. May 20th is my birthday. So I'm gonna be
Nice.
there for my birthday.
I'll be there for my
Girl.
birthday too.
I want a
Double
cake.
birthday.
Yes.
All right.
So for our radio listeners, May 19th to 21st, 2023, we are having our second annual Vegas SOR fan party at the Golden Nugget, and it's going to be a blast. We're going to be a bunch of people. Everybody from this panel will be there, and we'll have a bunch more of our cryptid UFO and paranormal celebrities there hanging on out with us for a few days and hanging on out with you, taking your conversations and you get them one-on-one. You want to talk ghosts with Merle, you talk ghosts with Merle. If you want to talk UFOs with Katie, you go do it. It's just
And
that
eat cake.
real eat cake. Yes, we'll
And
have
eat
a
cake.
big birthday. We'll
You
have a
want
big
to
birthday.
talk Bigfoot with Carter? Is Carter going to be there again?
Carter Bouchard will be in Vegas along with Nate and Corey Rudd. Hallmark will be there again, yes. And we'll have a bunch more people coming in as we speak, as well as we start to solidify the event for next year. Pono's birthday in the chat room, May 22nd. It's also my father's birthday. So, yeah, you need to come, Pono, so we can all get there. And it's a thing where everybody's invited. We're going to set it on up, and we'll have more information for everybody soon. We're just finalizing all the details with the Golden Nugget, and we're going to have a great time again. Great time again. And we may give out some awards. We may. And I've already told one special person that he has to come down from Winnipeg, no matter what.
Nice.
Yes. No
Nice.
matter what. Mr.
Yeah.
Grant Cameron has to come down
Nice.
and join us for that. And he has committed. He has committed
He
to it.
wanted to come to 2022, but it all was caught up.
Yeah. Yeah, but all the fans are involved. We'll soon get you an email for our radio listeners and our regular listeners on YouTube or the podcast that you could reach out and get more information from, because the sooner that we can get everything booked up, the better it is for all of us. So let's continue on with the chat. We got about 6.5 minutes before we have to go to break. Nicole, I'm going to want to go with you on this one. You mentioned unicorns, said you wish there would be more about unicorns out there. But in North America, we have so many. Give me a couple, even one, that you would love to see more research done about. For me, I go with Varla Ventura's mermaids. I think there could be mermaids out there. Let's hear what you think.
I completely went crazy over that History Channel mockumentary that they did so well, where they were talking about, and I call it a mockumentary because it was actors pretending to be scientists that were part of, I think they were assuming NOAA, but it was done really well. It like hooked you and sucked you in, and it was about these sea beasts that end up having these strange skewers in them and hearing these strange like sonic sounds along with pods of dolphins. And you could hear what they set up to be like communication, where they could tell it wasn't dolphins or tell it wasn't whales. It was like this unknown creature. But then it sort of came out that it was all fake. Their documentary was all spliced together, and it was a mockumentary and not real. And that adds to the controversy of History Channel to begin with. But there are actual cases of the animals. Whalers find these strange like spears in whales and other sea creatures. And then we have the cave art that depict what look like mer people, maybe even fighting land people or a dispute. And I find those little things interesting, but then it also falls into is that the true like storytelling, and were they using pictures to tell a story, Then you go back even further and you hear stuff like at one point in our own evolution, we obviously came from the sea, we went to the land, into the trees, and somewhere in our evolution, like maybe why our spine is the way it is, that we maybe went back to the water at some point, and some of us reemerged, and some of us stayed in the water. So are there mer type homo something in the water? I don't know. I would defer to Linda Moulton Howe, and she might know what's going on with mer people in Antarctica, maybe, or like Tom mentioned, this trench that's so deep. Like, is what, or even in this video, what's off the Pacific coast down there in the water? Is it a merman portal, and we think it's a UFO portal?
Ultra
Well-
rare is a unicorn mermaid. That's ultra rare.
They might ride seahorses with the unicorn horns.
You never know.
Or what's the man-o-wall thing? Or a narwhal? They have a horn. They have
That's
their
true.
own unicorn. Sea horns. Sea
That's
unicorn.
True.
That's actually one of their teeth, believe it or not, and it protrudes through their lip. It's the only one that grows.
Whoa.
Sorry, I'm a one of those dads that has weird dad facts.
Nice. They come in handy though, right?
Right?
Well,
Well, they say like your fingernails, your bones, your teeth, it's all the same thing. So yeah. Okay, cool.
Some of these crypto beings do tie into UFOs though, because we had them reported at Skinwalker at the Colorado Ranch, and they were large birds, very unusual birds like phoenixes,
Mm.
yeah, the Thunderbirds.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think some of them are tied to UFOs.
Phoenix.
You know,
Thunderbird.
one of the things, like whatever happened to zombies? All of a sudden, the zombie craze is gone, except in app video games. I mean, otherwise, nobody talks zombies anymore. I mean, there's one that you would think is something that, where are they? I mean, there are on record.
No.
They ate
I
everybody.
feel like a zombie, but I have a question. I wasn't pointing to Katie being a zombie, but I had a comment. It's in the vein of kind of in literary works, you do see this zombie theme pop up when there are like high times of like turmoil in your society. That's when we've kind of seen the zombie narrative emerge. So that might be why like the Walking Dead craze has been a craze, because of all our turmoil that we're going through. Just like, Twilight days, it got erased by zombie days, and now the vampires are reemerging. There's that awesome one with Jared Leto, his show that has come out. Love him from My So-Called Life days and 30 Seconds to Mars. Like, so he has that vampire stuff out. They did a reboot of Dracula. So we are in the age of reboots. They're going to reboot the vampires, and in 10 years, we'll be back to zombies. So
And
don't worry, zombies are coming.
Well, real quick, I have something to say when it comes to these like vampiric stories, the zombie stories. So these zombie stories actually date back quite a long ways.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen, everybody knows about rabies. That literally does that to humans as well. Like literally, if it goes too far, obviously it's very bad for us, but you literally turn into a zombie for a little bit. And if there was just some type of strain out there that would change ever so slightly where it didn't kill us so fast, then zombies could definitely be real.
I think
And
that
on
we
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly that I think Netflix has really romanticized zombies, vampires, even there's romance novels now about Bigfoot as well. So I think that's a huge issue. This is what is still lingering around. It's just now we've made these romance stories out of them. So I guess it's, we're still interested. We're just interested in a different way now.
Well, you know what? There was also interest in romanticizing the Purge too, but that wouldn't be a good idea. We continue with the roundtable in hour number 3 next. When we return with this UFO panel, what do we want to see happen in ufology within the next 6 months to a year? All right, we're clear.
Heck yeah.
That's a
Seriously, that
loaded-
Sasquatch novel killed me when there's like a whole series of them on Amazon.
I'll be right
It's
back.
just nuts.
Do they have kind of strange cover art on them?
Do they have
Like
what?
a romance novel, but it's Bigfoot's, you know?
Yeah,
like-
most likely. I think you're
Okay.
right. I think they have it on there.
I saw one and I thought it was kind of a joke, but now maybe I'm thinking it's a real thing. 'Cause
No, after Twilight, everything was open. It was open seasons. Everybody went nuts.
I tell you, I am a little excited. I hear they're rebooting a bunch of Anne Rice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I would like to see that covered properly in a reboot by
Yeah.
a reboot
Yeah, a
artist.
proper one. I liked Interview with the Vampire.
Right.
I didn't mind Lestat and stuff, but it got too weird. I
It
didn't like the
went way
cinematography.
backstory, but I think what I've heard is coming out or is out is the Witching Hour though, and the Lasher, her witch series.
Okay.
So I think that might be out on a streaming one that I don't have already, but
Like
I've
Hulu
really
or
been
something,
wanting
right?
to check it out. They are talking about all these like pop culture bleed throughs that we're seeing these days. So got to check out the paranormal stuff. I will
Can't
say
zoom
this,
in close enough. Darn it.
zombie mania. There is real links to religions or spirituality and zombies. It comes up in voodoo. They voodoo and they can raise their dead and kind of have like a zombie companion. And it's not like eat brains, rah, 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 like kind of stuff. It's
Right.
different. I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I have looked into it a little bit to be fascinated by it, honestly.
Right.
And apparently you're never supposed to hand a zombie something directly from your hand to their hand.
Oh,
At least that's something I read a long time ago.
That's Tony Stark as well, right? Like he doesn't like receiving things in his hand. You have to put it down on the table. That's part of his character, which is I always thought was quite funny.
Oh, great.
That's Iron Man. Yeah.
Narwhal.
Giant tooth.
It is too. I think what's really funny is if you ever look it up. I think I saw it on a TV show that my son was watching one day, and it just stuck with me. It's like it's always one tooth. It's like either their left or right. I think it's their left tooth or something like that. It's always off to the side, so they're never straight ahead. But one stays normal, and the other one goes through their lip and just keeps getting longer and longer until it's considered a tusk.
Did you guys see my ancient Geiger radiation detector that I showed off? Did you guys think it was a Ghostbusters?
It looked like it. Yeah.
I know but no, it's like the world's oldest radiation detector. It's what I take with me to my CE5 circles.
Nice.
But this actually is my brother-in-law's. He loans it to me all the time, but it does look like the Ghostbusters thing. It's like slide it in.
They're
And I'm gonna
bloody
check
expensive too to purchase. They're really expensive.
Yeah, this wasn't cheap, but
No, it doesn't look cheap. Yeah.
that's right. My brother-in-law can buy stuff like that. He's got a
Yeah.
good job.
I got
And
mine
then
off
the
of
cheap.
Wish. It's cheap. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got
It is an antique one though. You can buy newer ones and they're not like the
Yeah.
Ghostbusters slide.
But the
But
antiques, they're solid. That's the thing, is that they're still good to use, and they're
that's
solidly made.
perfectly functioning. It will work. It's still in excellent condition. So they're built to last.
All right, Egon.
Exactly. Spangler.
Egon Spangler.
I always fancied myself like the Bill Murray character, honestly.
Oh, Dr. Peter.
I am. I'm so Peter.
Dr. Peter. What the? How do you say his last name?
Venkman.
Venkman.
Peter Venkman.
Can you guys not hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
You sound a little quiet now.
I know, because my microphone stopped working. Maybe I should try and fix it during the break.
Technical difficulties. That's the second one.
Luis.
Have you
Tully.
tried to recalibrate the phase variance on the EPS manifold?
I tweaked my flux capacitor.
Are your maladjusted antisocial tendencies a product of your berserk pituitary gland?
Definitely.
Poor chat rooms. Like, what are the
What?
guys doing?
I think the only one that actually understood what I said was Tom. I got that out of an old Calvin and Hobbes book.
All right, we got about 1 minute, guys.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh boy, everybody's
miss you,
calling it
Juan.
Egon.
Okay.
Katie has nice bangs.
Ah, thank you. Getting my hair all recolored on Monday.
Me too.
Maybe I'll go for the mermaid look.
The mermaid. Look, don't forget the horn.
Yeah, right. I was trying to push both of them down.
How amazing would that be, though, if there was a mer people under our seas like that? Like
Merman. Merman. All right, guys,
Mm-hmm.
hold on right there. Thank you, Thomas, Donnie ×2, Catfish, Jeffrey, Hank, Vaughn, Pascal ×2, Big Dog, and Dirt Road. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lacuscular. Lacuscular is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. We continue on with the SOR Roundtable tonight as we are joined by some special guests who come on in to talk about the month that was. And we are joined by Nicole Sakach, researcher and author, Jason Guillemette from the UAP Studies podcast, Tom Whitmore, researcher of MJ12, Grant Baker from the After Hours show on Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel, and from Colorado MUFON, Katie Paige. And here we're going to continue on with UFOs here for a second. We're going to keep it toning down because in the next half hour, we are going to talk about immunity. You know, and we're not talking about Survivor here. All right. We're talking about UFO immunity. But first, the next 6 to 12 months are going to be very interesting in the UFO field. You know, whether we see more hearings, whether we see more talks, whether we see more people coming out publicly about what they know, government officials, maybe military pilots. I don't know really what's going to happen since the United States Navy decided to cut everything off, where they said, we are not getting any more videos. We are not getting any more, giving any more information. To me, that was a real slap in the face to the work that Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon have done specifically. So in the next 6 to 12 months, Katie Paige, what do you see happening within UFOs and the publicity with them?
Oh gosh, don't get me started, Dave. I'm so fearful that ufology is going backwards. It's you know, we made strides forwards and now all of a sudden we're pedaling backwards or something. That's what I'm afraid of. This whole I just feel like in years past, well, for decades actually, we were really making connections with I would say, you know, talking about the paranormal and stuff, you know, looking at a wide variety of like with Grant Cameron's his contact modalities, that's where I want to be headed. And I feel like we're headed more back to the nuts and bolts kind of thing, like we were, a decade ago. So that's my fear. So I hope that we don't do that. And I hope we keep going on that other path that Grant Cameron and so many others have, Jacques Vallée have opened up.
But Katie, you bring up a good point. I have a couple questions for you. Question one, how is that going to happen when the United States Navy took a big stick to the UFO field and swatted us right across the ass with saying that they aren't going to be giving us anything, and shame on you, UFO community, for even asking us for information?
Right. It's not. I mean, but at the same time, with the congressional hearings when they were talking about, possibly prosecuting contactees and abductees and, all this kind of BS, maybe it's good they're kind of taking a step back out. I don't know. I think, like so many other fellow ufologists, we think that this information is going to come out from all of us, not the military and not the government.
Well, that is a hopeful point. Very hopeful point. Nicole, how about you? Let's get into this with you. The next 6 to 12 months of ufology. Do we see more leakage of information coming out from people like we just saw with Oak Shannon? Do we see more people starting to push for more congressional hearings, or do we see it moving away from the politics and the military because of the way the Navy is acting?
I want to say I do share some of the same fears that Katie does. What feels different to me right now with this current dialogue is the wave of experiencers that we've had kind of come forward. And I'm not meaning just from the community. We are seeing more people in the community be vocal and come out and share their experiences than ever before, hands down, I think, in the last 5 years. More so than just telling the stories, like in reporting and everything. So when we start hearing people like Gary Nolan coming out and Jim Semivan coming out and even Oak Shannon sharing his experience the way he did, we're seeing these very, what I think we consider leveled up people, making these stances. And it does concern me because we are cautious. We've seen all of this happen before, and we've seen the Condon reports come out or projects not get funded, and they tend to go underground again, waiting for the chance to get money to pursue these things. I'm worried that if we have closed hearings, if everything goes to closed hearings because of classification, then we run the risk of it going underground again, or being treated like, oh, well, we pursued that threat angle and it's not as threatening as we thought, and we're losing interest, so we lose money. And then what happens again? Then it's, oh, there was nothing to pursue. It's not worth our time. Experiencers are crazy lunatics again. Even those that came out, it's like, oh, good try. Don't listen to them. And then we're back to being the lunatics. Like, people still complain about Billy Meyer and Adamski and the original ones all these decades later. We can't even be objective enough to look at them with new eyes these days and pull out their contact modality. Not their controversy, but their contact modalities or the messages that they were trying to convey with whatever they were in contact with. Why do we have to be that skeptical to throw the bathwater out with the babies or vice versa, babies out with the bathwater? Even that far back in history, it's like we can't even cut them the benefit of the doubt. So with that narrative at play, that's a little scary to me, because I think, as every round we've seen before, we never get the phenomenon's point of view or the experiencer's want list or get list. It's always comes down to the push for money to be able to look at it more. Well, we've had decades and decades of trying to push for the money. Where are the decades and decades where we're going to maybe not have the money, but finally listen to the experiencers? Not the secret ones that this group just wants to talk to, but all of us, general population at large, just start paying attention. We're not all right, but we're not all wrong, and we might all have some useful pieces. So the other thing I want to add quickly is I call them the Lou crew. Grant likes to refer to it as American Disclosure Team, like just little funny nicknames. Nobody has a true name for them or any of them. We tend to focus on them because they are the popular, like, main push, a driving entity force in this. But there are other pockets pushing for disclosure issues as well, still trying to get out different avenues of information and break things their way. So I think we might need to pay attention to a few of these other groups that are in parallel or congruent, because to me, they might have a global reach more or a more inclusive approach to what they're doing. They might be trying to include more than the threat narrative or the money narrative. They might be trying to break things before 2003. So I think we need to pay attention. I think there's going to be more than just this dialogue coming out. I do think Biden's going to sign the things we expect him to sign, and we're going to get the funding, and that's going to move forward. That really feels like it did 2 years ago when we were questioning it, or last year.
Tom Whitmore, let's bring you in here. It's been a year of ups and downs for ufology. We saw earlier this month the United States Navy say, heck no, you're not getting any more videos. The public doesn't deserve any more videos, and neither do you, stinking no good politicians. And here we are trying to figure out where we're going in the direction of ufology now that this has happened. What's your take on this, Tom?
Well, Dave, I just have a few things I'd like to say about that.
I want to hear it.
The fact that Oak Shannon recently went public, I think, is a very, very, very encouraging sign. This advanced theoretical physics group was supposed to be hush-hush. You're not supposed to talk about it. In fact, John Alexander had been denying it many times to people. So with Oak Shannon coming out, there are if you look at his notes and the notes of Jack Hook, or Hauk, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, two of the people that attended one of the sessions. If you look at their notes, there are other people in that group that are still alive. So if Oak Shannon went public, maybe some of the other ones feel like they can start talking now, and maybe it's going to start a trend, because basically, as far as the advanced theoretical physics group goes, the cat is out of the bag, and that's a hope that I have. Another aspect is that Richard Doty has been giving a lot of interviews, and he keeps repeating that he's a member of this retired intelligence officers group, and he has a number of contacts there. I think he has his own circle, and recently he's been making reference to quote unquote his group, that they're going a different route than Elizondo and Mellon have been going about possibly bringing about more disclosure. And Doty has claimed that in the DIA's vault, in their saves, they've got all the files. They've got the documentation. So I'm hoping in the next month or years, it will be interesting to see if his group can make any headway.
That's a very good point. See if headway can be made, but I'm just curious, Jason, as we move forward on this topic, the next 6 months to 12 months, I think is going to be crucial for if we're moving forward or we're moving backward in ufology. This Navy thing really, really bugged me because I think it's a very crass, bold, and bullying type move by the Navy finally getting their revenge, so to speak, on Elizondo and Mellon getting the 3 videos, Go Fast, Tic Tac, and Gimbal out when they did in 2017. And hey, you know what? They played a good game. Don't get mad, get even. And the idea now that we're going to be shut down, that they've publicly stated against the grain of what the government was saying, that they were not going to provide any more information. They were going to go more like the U.S. Air Force, who has refused to comment on all of this stuff. I mean, how do you take that? How do you see any positives moving forward?
Well, I was disappointed, like everybody else, when the Navy came out and said they're not going to release anything else. But in all fairness, I think the Navy did their part in all of this so far, in whatever disclosure or seeping of disclosure that's currently happening. Again, I would like to hear from the regular military, the Marines. I'd like to hear from the Air Force. That is, why is the Air Force so
sure.
flippin' quiet about this? They should be
Explain that.
front and center, on this topic. They dominate the air. So again, the Navy, we've had confirmation from them that the videos were legit, that the pilots had actually recorded something that they couldn't identify. What I think the disclosure is going to happen is people like Jim Semivan, that worked for the CIA. He was a agent, for crying out loud. And he had an experience while he was working for the CIA. He had an experience at his own home. So to me, that opened up my eyes to saying that people in the DOD are having experiences as well. We're all thinking here that they're trying to look into this. There's some experiencers amongst them. And I think that's where disclosure is going to come forth. I think that people are going to come forward, that with high rank saying, I can't comment on the UAP issue, but I'm an experiencer and this is what I've experienced. And I think that is where disclosure is going to come from. The men and women that are serving, that are experiencers, that haven't stepped forward because they're afraid that they're going to lose their career. But now with this whole immunity thing, I really think that once that catches on, it's going to be like a Me Too movement, but like a Me Too UFO. So sort of, hashtag that, kids. Let's get that going. But that's where I see it happening. I see that disclosure, even from Avi Loeb, that wants to search the ocean for what he believes are crashed crafts or something. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I just don't think it's the direction we thought we were going to be moving into. I think disclosure is going to happen, but not the way we all fictionalized that it's going to happen.
Grant, let's get your take.
There's a new Linda Moulton Howe and Chris Mellon interview that I think it was only about 15 minutes that just recently, within the last day or two, came out. I think yesterday, maybe. Yeah. Anyways, he was asked on that, and I don't want to go through the whole interview because I haven't watched it all yet. So if this is out of context, I apologize. But he was asked, when you think we're going to get any juicy kind of disclosure, and would you be surprised if it happened in the next, either this year or the next? And it would surprise him, and this is somebody that's trying to push the agenda, at least in some people's eyes. And he's like, yeah, I think I would be surprised if they did something like that here soon. So, the whole backpedaling thing, it started out strong, and then now we're losing a lot of momentum with it. Yep. And it is discouraging, but to all of us that don't need disclosure, that say, okay, we're going to keep on doing what we love and what we do best and what we love to do. So it's I don't know, when it comes to disclosure itself, I don't really think, like, I agree, I don't think it's going to come from the DOD or the government. I think it's going to come about like people like Avi Loeb, like you were mentioning, who's doing the Galileo project. I'm really putting a lot of stock, not all my eggs in those baskets, but I'm putting a lot of stock in it just to see where it goes. And I think it's going to be people like them, like us, that are going to push this narrative and get it out there in the open and make people more aware of it.
Well, I hope people become more aware, but I see this also being closed down too.
Mhm.
I mean, if there's nothing that's going to be happening in the public eye over the next little bit, I mean, what do we really have to look forward to? Unless there are more people coming through. All right. Can we trust what Galileo Project is going to do? I mean, considering many of their members are not only government officials, but Space Force officials and scientists who have connections to the U.S. government and the alphabet agencies. Can we trust what they are going to be doing? I want to, but I don't think we can fully. I mean, maybe I'm sounding a little negative there, but I don't think I am. Right? I also look at the idea that this is finally the United States Navy really showing the military industrial complex when they say we're not doing this anymore. We're not playing the UFO games anymore. Well, if you're not playing the game, why didn't you sue the To the Stars Academy when they put their logo on your videos? Why did you let it ride out? You had a legal case, U.S. Navy. Why didn't you do that? So there's all of these little instances and nuances that are not making sense towards a bright future in ufology, unless another Elizondo type person decides to come out. We know Travis Taylor was close. Sure, he's done the podcast junket lately, but he really hasn't given up much. Not like Elizondo did. And Elizondo, for the most part, has gone quiet again since it came out, courtesy of his lawyer, Daniel Sheehan, that he was, in fact, indeed hired by Space Force to run one of their UFO programs. So where do we stand, Tom? I don't know.
Yeah, well, things are getting a little mixed together there. Lou Elizondo has been out playing whistleblower, and yet he's apparently now are going to be employed as a contractor to the Space Force. So things are getting kind of jumbled up a little bit. And if you have people in the Galileo project that are employed in the government, I would think that if the government supervisors think that the activity is sensitive, that the participants would need permission from their supervisors to participate in a project like that. And the reason why I say that is, let's say Avi Loeb and his bunch, they get some telescopes going and they get some pretty good data reception equipment going. What if they stumble across classified satellites or classified things in orbit? That's getting pretty hairy there. So I agree with you. Things are getting pretty mixed together.
I think it's bleak, Tom. I very do think it's bleak. And once again, I'm not trying to play the negative Nancy here, right? But I really don't see anything positive coming out of ufology. We got 40 seconds, Nicole. Your microphone's on mute.
30 seconds. It's a weird trend that it's in, out, in for somebody like Taylor. And when he's in, he knows something. When he's out, he makes a TV show. And now he's back in such an important role. Same way with Lou. He was in, he's out, he does some TV, and now he's back in. So what happens to these interesting things they've explored when their future stuff starts to go classified and under NDAs, and they're discussing about investigations they've done in the past? Is that all going to get blanketed under new NDAs or new classifications and things like that? So that's a concern.
Well, when we come back, we're going to continue this talk, including immunity. That was a huge talk. If you come out, can you be fired or charged with treason? We'll be back. Spaced Out Radio continues with the roundtable. All right, there we go. We're clear.
Good topics.
Let me finish that just real quick. I don't like it because Bigelow never put out anything really juicy from whatever they did at that ranch before. So now we've had Taylor there again investigating it, and now he's back on the inside. So does that mean like after the Skinwalker shows are out, like portions of that or maybe what wasn't aired, is all that information going to become classified somehow and to further this pursuit that we're all on? So in the end, we still don't get anything more than what the television show has shown us. And that's what I'm starting to think about unidentified. They go around, they talk to all these interesting people that could maybe like validate the here and now. And then if this all goes dark again, then does that all get compartmentalized and code worded up and, you know, lumped into the weird desk trash can that's never going to come back? I'm worried. I get worried about things like that. I really do. That's where I go all like, oh no, disclosure for dollars instead of disclosure for exposure, or or it's
kind
going
of
to
like
fall
that.
short. It's going to fall short. I don't even mean it to sound badly. It's just going to fall short of what we, the general population, want. Okay, now
could we have not done that to ourselves, considering the amount of podcasts and YouTube channels out there that have portrayed this entire field as being very negative?
It's negative because we're all fighting each other, right? Like none of us have the answers, but we're all fighting each other. And the thing is, when you go and throw money into the mix, like some people make killer money in this field, let's face it. You know, I'm not going to name names, but even us trying to approach some people, they were asking for like $1,000 for an hour of their time. And I was just blown away. I didn't know that they can make that kind of cash for an hour. A surgeon doesn't even make that kind of money. As my co-host Louis would say, it's crazy. And that's the biggest problem, is that now because money's involved, we're all like, the egos start going up and people start fighting online, especially Twitter. That's a nasty place to be on UFO Twitter, because everybody's calling each other out. Everybody's trying to disprove each other. It's a big problem. And I think, unity is really important. Even the show is really important because you're bringing people together. We're all clashing different ideas and theories, and that's what it should be about, right? It's not about, I know the answer, or I'm the only one who's privy to the aliens, and I'll charge you for a fee. You can see them, and I'm only going to feed you snacks. I'm that cheap, right? Like, so. But yeah, that's a big problem within our communities, the infighting, right?
Yep.
Well, sure. Absolutely. But I mean, you even look on the Canadian side, we already know that Trudeau and his minions have been read in on this and have sat silently for approximately 2.5 years, coming up 3 years, while everyone else in every other party is starting to ask questions about UFOs.
Yeah.
And here we know Trudeau was read in sometime between August and December of 2019.
Yeah, but see,
right?
if it has nothing to do with his personal agenda for the country, he's not interested. This is something that he's not going to take any interest in because it doesn't move his political system. So, but that should be, something that we should start bringing up to our leaders, especially as we're approaching an election, is saying, what are you going to do about disclosure, or what are you going to do about this issue of UAPs?
You know what, though? That is the right question. But there's a lot of bullshit that is going on with that. Give you an example. My MP, I met him at my daytime job. And I pulled him into my office and I said, this is what I do at night. This is what I'm associated with. And the what do you need to learn UFOs?
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of laughed at me. right? Kind of gave me the political sticker. And I said, his name is Frank. I said, Frank, I said, I'm serious about this. I introduced the former Pentagon guy to the Conservative Party's Larry McGwier. I said, this is going on behind the scenes. You need to learn this. Well, guess who is the assistant deputy critic of defense now? My guy. 2 emails that I've sent recently, hasn't even responded. Here we go, everyone. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio, much like an Aaron Judge home run. Let's go for 62. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with our panel discussion. The roundtable happens at the end of each month where we take a look at the month that was, and we are joined by After Hours host Grant Bacon. Sorry about that, Grant. Nicole Sakach, author and researcher. Katie Paige, MUFON, Colorado, researcher of MJ12. Tom Whitmore, and from the UAP Studies podcast, Jason Guillemette. Now, we got real heavy into what's going to happen the next 6 months, 12 months in the last half hour when it comes to UFOs and what we're going to get. But one of the big pushes right now, Tom, is the idea that immunity is being called for and really making the rounds, saying that many of these whistleblowers, whether it's Elizondo, whether it's fighter pilots, whether it's astronauts, they need government immunity in order to be able to get past their non-disclosure agreements to talk about what they really know about UFOs, where they are, crash retrievals, alien contact potentially. Tom, do you ever see immunity coming from the U.S. government regarding this?
Well, I'm not a lawyer and I don't work in Congress, and I can't say that I understand how that would work. For example, during the January 6th investigation in the Congress, they have produced what they call criminal referrals to the Justice Department. So if they think you did something wrong or you violated a law. Now, this is the inverse of that. And I'm not sure that they can grant immunity from prosecution. They can maybe they can grant or assert that they will not produce a criminal referral for disclosing classified information. They won't refer that to the Justice Department. But I don't know if a so-called grant of immunity or amnesty is valid from the Congress. And I'm talking like I'm kind of like a lawyer. I'm not, but I'm trying to think through this. Now, what I could see happening is people with truly sensitive information that's highly classified could go into closed session with the proper committees, the Intelligence Committee, the Armed Services Committee, and whatever members in there are cleared to receive or examine classified information. And I could see some of these people going in and about what they know. But we may not ever hear the results of that.
I don't believe that immunity will ever happen. In some way, one way or another, either the Air Force or the Navy will find a way to punish these people or the alphabet agencies they work for. Katie Paige, I know you've heard this conversation from places like even the MUFON Symposium back in your hometown of Denver. You know, I mean, there's a lot of talk about this. Is it even plausible?
No, I think there's too much liability if some of this information came to light. Some of these truths, if they were actually ever told. That's why, Jason, we don't hear from the Air Force. I mean, I think it's going to be 30, 40 more years if we're lucky. And I feel like I'm sort of like the downer on this round table here, and kind of like the one that
I'll
has
join in with you,
such
Katie.
a skeptical view, but I just don't. Yeah, I don't see immunity happening at all. No. Mm-mm. If they don't want it out, it won't come out.
We're saying immunity, and it's like, is that a shot I can get to be immune to UFO Twitter? Like, I mean, we're talking amnesty, right? Or like, that's, I just wanted to crack a joke, but I don't see it coming out that way. I think this might be like a grab to get people they are interested in talking to talk in these closed hearings. But we've all researched this enough. We've come across the people that talk to us, but not on the record. And it's not usually about themselves. It's about somebody they've directly or usually indirectly have been involved with somehow, and something bad happens to that person. They can't chase it down. They can't explain things, but they have their suspicions that it's boom, 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 boom. And then there's people like me and you that can't do dick to help them, except listen to what they say, document what we can, let them know we're out there. And if anything ever crosses up, we'll try to help them. But I mean, essentially, that's all we can do. Is because us citizens, we're going to hit those black walls. We're going to hit the places that we can't go unless we get lucky. And we're never that lucky. So it's disheartening when you think of people that, I mean, these aren't people that are in the mix. They might not even know the community that well, like our side of things. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's people out there in the world, and this isn't just ufology. We can even tie this into like post 9/11 and what our own FBI was allowed to do in certain communities inside the United States. And where this immunity thing or amnesty thing falls to me is just trying to think this through. In cases like the entire Rendlesham Forest, Enigma, even pre-1980s work that people like Andrew Pike have done and Nick Redfern have done on that entire area. And then to know in all these various people's research, like my pal Gary Osborne's fabulous book that he helped Jim Pennison co-write, to know that OSI was operating in England in and around those bases. Why would we think that our Five Eyes partners aren't in our country operating? You know what I mean? Like the equivalence of AFOSI being in England. What's England's equivalent, and are they operating here?
I doubt that, because America doesn't play ball. Like, even recently, there was a UFO meeting in France. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave, but I think it was in France, and Jacques Vallée was there. No U.S. representation whatsoever. Canada was there, Italy was there, England was there, France was there. Absolutely no American representation. Right. So even in Canada, Paul Hellyer, when he was the defense minister in Canada, there was an incident that took place before Canadian authorities can actually arrive there. Before he was even notified, the Americans were already on our side of the border taking care of whatever this crash retrieval was. And he's the defense minister. He was the last person to know.
Right.
And so, no, I think personally, the United States is just compartmentalizing all the information and operating in different countries, just not sharing the info.
But why are they allowed to operate in other countries? Like, I'm even thinking about what Ross Coulter has reported about black triangles in Australia. You
Right.
know, like, why is it okay for these US people to pop up in other countries? And we would assume that, I mean, I'm not talking like Russian spies or like Red Scare type, everybody's a communist. Like, there's operatives here. I'm saying known people, like in the sense that I didn't think the CIA could spy on American citizens, correct? Like, we can't run offs on our own citizens. That's what we have the FBI for. So our FBI doesn't necessarily go into other countries unless they have to, right? AFOSI should only be investigating things on our assets or our bases or embassies or whatever. So why do they pop up at people's houses? Like, what's James Fox's new film coming out, all about this Brazilian case? There's something going on down there. There were US agents or people representing themselves as from the United States, like poking around that case. So
Well,
where's that authority?
Nicole, this is what got me started on the whole idea of how did American government interests know about Canadian experiencers? And it started with a comment that our Keith Andrews from Keith comes on our show for people who don't know, okay, where he told a story about how he answered his door one day. He lives in an apartment complex. Yet on his main door, he gets a knock on his door, and it's an agent from the FBI wanting to talk to him about UFOs and his recent interaction. Samantha Mowat has had it happen, okay? And many others have had it happen. And I started putting it all together. Why were Canadian people having what I call American type of situations happening? And it came down to this. When if somebody contacts the RCMP about a sighting, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that report immediately goes on to the staff sergeant's desk, which gets put in a special file. So you could have a bank robbery going on and a UFO close encounter at the exact same time. The UFO close encounter takes precedence. Those files then go straight to headquarters in Ottawa, who immediately contacts headquarters at NORAD. But when you file a report with the police, what do they ask? Your name, your phone number, your address. They want a copy of your ID so they could scan it, which they're going to get a bunch more information, like your social insurance number and many others. I'm not playing conspiratorial. This is what's happening. So when every Canadian who reports a UFO to the RCMP, that information is going straight to NORAD. And every Canadian who does this has their information sitting in Colorado. And we're trying to get the member of parliament, Raquel Dancho, to look at this. And she needs to. This is the danger of what's going on. Right? And it's scary. It is really scary on how far and how deep this truly goes.
I've said this before, I think on your show last time we were on, but there's two things here. One, accountability when disclosure does happen. Some people are accountable for, one, withholding the information from the rest of us. Two, we got this new organization by Congress that are trying to, gather all this information and be the first ones on site if anything happens. They're competing against an older, wiser, and more experienced group that have been doing this for over 75 years. The people that are behind the scenes that have been doing this for this long, they're not just going to die and quietly and go, into the night, as it says, or the saying says. They're still around. They're still going to be competing against these people. The people that were knocking on doors telling you to shut up. Your family is going to be in danger. People that that was their job to do. You got Richard Doty's and stuff like that. The people that were hired to give this information, and at the time, and so these people, they got to be held accountable at some point. And that's a big problem with disclosure, is that we're not looking at that aspect of things. Like withholding that information from the scientific community for over 75 years, that's a crime as far as I'm concerned. That could have moved us forward, hundreds of years by now.
Yep. Agreed.
It could have, but it just goes to show how tightly everything is brought together around the world. Nicole.
Can I jump back in on this just a little quick,
Sure.
or a little bit? And this is one of my favorite books, and it's UFO Drawings from the National Archives by David Clark. And I wanted to give a shout out to our UK friends that I've been talking to a lot lately, because I think this comes up in an interesting way. And if you don't mind, I'll just read a quick paragraph from this, because it's talking about Mountbatten, or I know I'm not saying his name right. But it says, it's talking about post-World War II and Winston Churchill kind of diving into the UFO topic. And this is the royal family kind of diving into it as well. And he says, 2 years before the Washington UFO flap, one of Britain's most decorated military officials, Admiral of the Fleet, Lord Louis Mountbatten, made a startling confession to his friend Charles Ede, who edited the London Sunday Dispatch. And I'll skip ahead, and he says, they're not of human agency. That is to say, they do not come from our Earth, he wrote to Ede. Maybe it's the Shackletons or the Scots of Venus or Mars who are making first contact and the exploration of our Earth. These people, they're parliamentary ways of government. They do have different sort of Secret Service people around them that can poke into different areas. And I love this book, not only for all the artwork in it and the renditions, but when you start looking, it's not all British cases. A lot of it is from every other continent. There's cases in here that I didn't even know about. Socorro, New Mexico's in here too. There's one from Czechoslovakia. It's like they had their own intel from everywhere going on to know about some of these cases.
Can you show us the cover? Show us the cover. Oh, nice. Okay.
Here.
Show the top. Keep going.
That's an artist friend. That's
an
experiencer. Like all of it is. But it's full.
That was Starlink, by the way.
And there's documents in this book as well. And yeah, it just gives a British point of view on ufology, it's nice to find ufology that's not Americanized sometimes. So
yes,
definitely worth. I'll send you the links to it. I bought it off Amazon. I'm sure you can too. So that's all I have to say. There's agents at play everywhere. We don't know who they are. Any British accent at a UFO conference, just question them. What are you doing?
I question everybody. Happy October, everybody, by the way.
Yes, that's true. That's
Happy
true.
Halloween.
Yeah.
We do start
the
the run to the paranormal. We got 2 minutes left here before we have to say goodnight to our panel and our great show of the SOR Roundtable tonight. Tom, I want to use some of your words of wisdom here as we look towards, what's going to go on in ufology for the rest of the year, because you've been there, you've done that, you've seen a lot happen from your days at MUFON to your keynotes and research now. Is ufology in trouble?
It's in no more trouble than it's ever been in. In fact, it's probably better off now because we have at least some people in Congress that are interested in following up on it. And I'm going to try to say this within 2 minutes, but in 1994, Congressman Schiff from New Mexico requested a GAO investigation. And when the Air Force found out about that, they got on the stick. And the Air Force knew that the president's science advisor was interested. The Secretary of the Air Force actually released anyone connected with the Roswell incident. They were released from their security oaths, their secrecy oaths. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that I think would have to happen for this really important, really deep secrecy to be uncovered. In other words, I'm not sure Congress can do it. I'm just thinking that it has to come from the DoD side, and I just don't see that happening.
Anybody else? We got 1 minute.
I'm going to say something real quick. All those people from 75 years ago when Roswell happened, anybody that's getting older, that's been in control of this narrative and shutting it down for everybody, I am just hopeful, and I don't wish ill will on anybody, but I am hopeful that when, life is starting to end, it's near for them, that they do what they call the, deathbed confession and have proof for it. Because at that point, who cares? I mean, who cares about NDAs?
Good point.
Well, you know what? I want to say a big thank you tonight to a wonderful panel that really, really, really hit some good points on all aspects of our show tonight. From UAP Studies Podcast, Jason Guillemette. From Colorado MUFON, Katie Paige. Grant Baker. From the great, I have to say great, After Hours program on our YouTube channel. And, of course, Tom Whitmore, researcher, Nicole Sakach, author and researcher as well. Just a fantastic show for all of you to listen to tonight and really sink your teeth into. A lot of very good information on the month that was for September. We will do it all again at the end of October when we all come together for the next round table. Happy October, everybody. Welcome to the run towards pumpkin spice everything, Christmas decorations already up, and of course, Halloween. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, LGAB, Spreaker, Twitch, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yeah, we've got room for them too. Good night. All right, we're good.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having us on, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's good to see everybody.
Yes, nice to see you again, Katie. Nice to meet you, Tom and Grant.
Nice
Nicole,
to meet you.
nice to see you again.
It is nice to see you again. I was watching you guys the last time you were on. I was like, oh my God, there's 2 more cool Canadians. Oh, look at him. It was like on fire that night. It was such a good show. I thought he was going to be here tonight too. No?
He's worked out right now because it's the weekend, so he always has to work long hours. So
Yep.
he's like, I'm just gonna sit this one out tonight, but you go represent us. I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
I'm here representing Grant because he had to go to bed too. He was
Oh.
like, yeah, it's past my bedtime. It was good.
Stop the show.
What's
What's that?
that?
Grant, you just stopped the show, didn't you?
No.
Oh, weird, because it looked like it was stopping on YouTube, and I'm like not even touching my computer. No, we're good. We're good.
No, I can see us.
I'm trying to figure out why my Spreaker cut out. This fucking computer here.
Well, it's
Oh,
'cause
Grant
you-
Baker, give me your wink. How well do you wink? I just tried to give a wink. Oh, okay.
I give you one of those all the time.
Right.
I tried to
Nicole-
wink at somebody once, and it was just my eyelid closing as if I was just trying to refresh my eye. Yeah, it didn't work out.
That's me. Was that Katie?
I was gonna say Nicole is my super awesome Aunt Nicole to my new granddaughter. You guys were born on the
Right.
same day.
That
She was born
was
on
the
your
other month in review of what happened is Katie's grandbaby was born on my birthday.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
right away,
awesome.
Nicole's like, "Oh, I'm the cool, awesome man." I'm like, "Yes, you got that."
Got it. That's so exciting. I don't have any little girl. Oh, I have two. Yeah, I have two now. It started off with a bunch of boys in my family, and now there's finally some little girls running around. So
That's awesome. They named her Molly. So that's cute.
Oh,
I would think of
sweet.
Molly Ringwald. I'm like an 80s kid, so like
I
you don't
like
hear
that.
that name very often, you know?
No, Molly Ringwald was the bomb, back in the
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
hell happened here?
This is so fun. Oh. So you guys, what do you have coming up? Katie, what are you working on?
I'm leaving Wednesday for Phoenix. I'm gonna go camping with Stacy Wright and her whole crew out there, and then stay in 3 days with her. And then I'm speaking at UFO Congress.
Nice.
And then I was just sharing with Tom that I got a new job in the field, which I'm excited about as a coordinator for an event. So I'm excited about that, and it'll be full time.
Hey, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So
Okay, fun.
I'm one of the lucky few that get to do something for a job that I truly enjoy doing. So I'm really super stoked to start that, and
So
it
you're making
involves some traveling. Huh?
You're making pancakes then.
For dinner.
Something.
So,
Yeah,
Katie,
breakfast for dinner.
are you
Huh?
going to be giving us live updates from everything at UFO Congress? Or are you going to be calling us in and lighting us up, being like, "This is awesome. This is the
Yeah,
drama."
I should do that. I should get on my phone and do that. Yeah.
I think you should.
Yeah, that'd be
I
fun.
would tune into that because I wanted to go to that one this year and I wasn't able to work it out with scheduling and time and
Bummer.
all the stuff that's going on with me.
I got a question for you guys. Which one's better to go to, the Ozark or the UFO Congress?
God, they're both
Equally good in different ways. Like,
Right?
yeah.
Because
Thank
we're
God
thinking
they're
about
not
heading
the
out
same weekend.
there next year, but we don't know which one to go to because we don't know which one's the big one. So obviously going to Dave's party, but
I've missed the Ozark one the last couple years in a row, and I'm definitely going to this next one. I just have to. So
yeah.
there, that puts one in that that category for you. But the SCU, that's another one that I think everybody's talking about wanting to go to whenever they schedule it.
What is the SCU?
The Scientific
Oh,
Coalition.
right. Coalition. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then rumor has it Contact in the Desert is coming back.
Oh, nice.
Did it go away?
Well, it was virtual, through COVID and stuff. So they haven't been live
well.
for a while. So they should be back too. So that's a big one too.
Right.
And I always like the one in Oregon, the McMinnville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just north of me.
Yeah. I
And
love
south
that.
of Jason.
Grant Baker will be reporting live from McMinnville. Yeah.
Oh, are you?
I'd love to go up there. I can do that. There's a Mercedes up there I want to look at anyway. So
Go for it.
That'd be
You
awesome.
should request to be able to blog about it or, bring it on your weekend show or whatever. You might even get a free pass. Joe
Oh, that's
Merja
really
does
cool.
that. He did it for Laughlin, I think, a couple years in a row.
When's that? Let me look up that.
They like, I think, well, Katie, you're a new organizer. Don't they give out passes for people that promote the show and do things like that and help? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
See?
Yeah, it's part of the advertising and
All about
podcasting. They need
networking
podcasters to do that.
network.
Radio shows, Mr. Dave Scott.
What's the one in McVinville called?
It's the UFO Fest.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
I thought they already
Tom,
did
what
that.
do you have coming up that's new and exciting, and what's keeping you busy?
I'm actually getting ready to go on a 2-week trip to Morocco. And
What?
Tom just invited us all to Morocco.
and it's a bucket list trip, but the days that I'm gone are classified.
Oh, of course. Top secret, cosmic top secret, classified, right?
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting for sure.
That'll be wonderful.
So since it's a classified mission, you won't be broadcasting live from Morocco.
Actually, I'm advised if I need to communicate to use WhatsApp. So I have to be somewhere that they have Wi-Fi. You know,
Is it dangerous there, Tom?
the places I'm going, I don't think so. I think if you get way down south, toward Mauritania, or get too far east into the Sahara, that kind of thing, that might get dangerous.
Okay.
But I'm on a very scheduled, structured tour, with a group and experienced guides and all that. I'm not like traipsing out in the mountains by myself.
Right.
Right.
Real quick,
I mind jumped in earlier. Tom, if you get kidnapped on your secret trip, we'll start a GoFundMe to pay your ransom and get you back. Okay. Survive, stay alive, we'll find you.
I don't know how much money you're going to raise, but I guess you can try.
We have friends who know friends who know friends who
But
get
the
you out.
the main thing I want to do when I'm there is have breakfast for dinner.
Oh shit!
Yes.
Yay!
I woke Dave up. I woke him up.
All of a sudden, Tom Whitmore is cut from the show.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It was nice knowing you.
I gotta go let my puppy out to potty. Thanks, Dave.
All right, guys.
Good to see you.
Since you have nothing to edit tonight, we're going to call it the night on our YouTube channel, and we're going to have some fun behind the scenes. And we will make sure that all of you get ready for Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, and then followed by Grant Baker's After Hours with his team. And thank you tonight to Thomas Pascal ×2, Dirt Road, and Big Dog, Vaughn Patrick, Dutch Hank, Jeffrey, Donnie ×3, and Catfish for the super chats tonight. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.